Chapter 16, Everyone's a Liar. In Red Leaf Town's noisy plaza, flashes of white light appeared, following which figures of players appeared one by one. These players were the revived members of Shadow. These people had down and extremely depressed expressions on their faces. Nothing could beat the pain and entangled feeling of having recently gained something, then losing it again. Just a moment ago, they were still dreaming of becoming the tyrants of Red Leaf Town. Their levels were increasing, it was like flying. In the next second, however, they died. Not only had their levels and skill proficiency decreased, but the experience they had at level 1 was also lower than before. They were much worse off compared to the average player. Flaming Tiger's expression after reviving was even more livid. His eyes alone could eat a person alive. System, player Yifeng has killed you. You will be revived in Red Leaf Town after 3 seconds. At the same time, you will lose 1 level and all your skill proficiencies will be reduced by 100 points. Yifeng, I will not let you off. I will definitely make you wish for death. Flaming Tiger let out an angry bellow after looking at the numbers displayed by the system. His actions had caused the other players to quickly avoid him, not daring to look at this madman. After venting for a while, Flaming Tiger ordered the other members of Shadow to check their bags, checking for the items they dropped. Although this death caused great losses for everyone, there wasn't just the EXP gained from killing kobolds. There was also loot. This was also the only thing they could be happy about. At the very least, they did not busy themselves for nothing. When Flaming Tiger took a look into his bag, a sweet taste suddenly entered his throat. He spat out a mouthful of blood. At once. Immediately. We head for Dark Moon Valley now. I must kill that kid. Flaming Tigers bellowed, his anger reaching up to the skies. The skill book that he planned on using to ridicule Shifeng was gone. It was an extremely rare skill for swordsmen, and it was also the most valuable item they got from grinding kobolds. Now it was gone. However, the most unforgivable thing was that the skill book had fallen into Shifeng's hands. In the end, all of Flaming Tiger's efforts had become Shifeng's gains. This was something that he would not tolerate. His hatred was something that could not be resolved, even if he were to kill Shifeng back to level 0. The other members of Shadow did not understand what had happened to Flaming Tiger. Going to search for Shifeng right now was just a futile effort. Nobody would be foolish enough to wait for them to take revenge. Shifeng would definitely slip away, snickering at them in some other place. At this moment, Flaming Tiger's system communication rang. Who is it? Disturbing me at this time? Are you trying to die? Flaming Tiger cursed after the call connected. Flaming Tiger, your temper sure has grown after not meeting for a day. The voice on the other side was ice cold, as if in a furious rage. Flaming Tiger felt the familiarity of that voice. When he found the corresponding identity to the voice, his face suddenly turned extremely ugly. Brother Zhang, it is you. I'm currently educating my subordinates. I never thought Brother Zhang would contact me. Brother Zhang, please don't mind it. I wasn't speaking about you just now. Enough. I already know about your problem. Just looking at the damage you've caused towards Shadow's development in Red Leaf Town, looking at what the good you've done has accomplished towards Shadow's development in Red Leaf Town, I'll come to you immediately. From now onwards, you don't have to continue being Red Leaf Town's team leader. Silent Rain, the team's elementalist, will take over temporarily. If you're still not level 2 by the time I arrive in Red Leaf Town, then you can just get lost. Shadow doesn't need garbage. Flaming Tiger became spiritless after hearing these words. His hatred for Shifeng would never be washed away, even by the 5 lakes and 4 seas. Meanwhile, in Dark Moon Valley, Shifeng and Blackie were picking up the drops from the members of Shadow. Shifeng was currently holding the skill book dropped by Flaming Tiger. Flaming Tiger really is too generous. He had even left me such an item. Shifeng chose to learn the skill without hesitation. Wind Blade Action Type. Requires, Sword. Level 1. Proficiency 0/300. Ambush an enemy outside 5 yards and within 30 yards. Movement speed will be increased by 40% when rushing towards the target and attack speed increased by 20% for 3 seconds. Cooldown 25 seconds. A swordsman mobility would be greatly increased with this skill. It was a great counter to rangers and mages who love to kite. Brother Feng, the meteorite we need are all here. There are also quite a few bronze. Oregon Shadow really helped us big this time. Blackie laughed loudly. As he was collecting the ore from the ground, he noticed a piece of dark green Oregon. Picking it up, he asked, Brother Feng, what is this star crystal? When Shi Feng heard about the star crystal, he ignored the meteorite or below his feet, instantly turning around and running towards Blackie. Damn, it really is a star crystal. Blackie, your luck is really too good. You even picked up such a thing. Shi Feng said excitedly as he carefully looked at the dark green ore after receiving it. Every monster in the world had a chance of dropping a star crystal. The chances were 1,000,000 to 1. Maybe it was trash to other people, but to Shi Feng, it was a priceless treasure. It was also the thing he needed the most. Brother Feng, what is this star crystal for? Blackie curiously asked. Shi Feng was usually calm and indifferent. Such an excited reaction from him displayed the preciousness of the star crystal. It's for eating but not for players. Shi Feng smiled slightly but did not continue explaining as he kept the star crystal. It's for eating? Blackie was slightly confused. Who would eat a rock? However, Shi Feng must have his own reasons for not explaining, so Blackie did not continue asking about it. A moment later, all the drops were collected. They had received a total of 14 pieces of meteorite ore and 32 pieces of bronze ore. Not only had they completed Shi Feng's quest, they even had some leftovers. Subsequently, the two of them arrived at the smithy. Master Jack, I have collected the meteorite ore you asked for. Shi Feng handed over all of the meteorite ore, not leaving even one behind. These were all quest items. A stack of them would only sell for 1 copper to an NPC. It was utterly worthless. Not bad, young man. However, if you wish to become an outstanding forger, you still need to have enough strength to obtain precious ore. There is a powerful kobold chieftain. Go kill it to prove your strength. Master Jack said eloquently as he stored away the meteorite ore. System, Hidden Quest Road of Forging. Kill the kobold chieftain inside Crimson Star Mine. Time limit of 1 hour. When Shi Feng saw that there was still a second stage to the quest, Shi Feng wished he could curse hammer trading. He had caused Shi Feng big trouble this time. As expected, everybody would have kept something to themselves. Nobody could be trusted. Everyone's a liar. In Shi Feng's previous life, hammer trading had not mentioned a second stage of the quest. Now a second stage, time-limited quest had appeared. It was even against a chieftain monster. That wasn't an elite monster you simply run across. A chieftain was even stronger than a special elite. It was the equivalent of a dungeon's boss. Shi Feng was just level 3 and a leader monster was just too deadly to him. In Shi Feng's previous life, hammer trading was level 16 when he accepted the quest. Completing the quest was extremely easy. Forget it, let's have a look at it first. He could do nothing about being tricked. However, Shi Feng did not plan to give up. The forging talent had too great of a use and Shi Feng must learn it. Following which, Shi Feng and Blackie cleared the way of kobolds as they headed towards the deeper parts of the Crimson Star Mine. Compared to the kobolds at the entrance, the kobolds inside were no longer level 4, they were level 5. They took more time and energy to kill. Often, another kobold would respawn before one was killed. If there weren't enough black steel beer to reduce the kobold's level by 2, then Shi Feng and Blackie's killing speed would be completely unable to keep up with the respawn rate. Half an hour later, Shi Feng and Blackie arrived at the deepest part of the Crimson Star Mine. It was a large piece of empty land. There were over 10 kobolds mining for ore in the surroundings. There was a huge figure standing in the center of the empty area. It was a kobold that wore armor, and it was constantly giving out commands to the other kobolds. Kobold Chieftain, Chieftain rank. Level 5. HP 2100/2100. Just its HP alone could cause a person despair, not to mention the heavy armor worn on the Kobold Chieftain. Its defense was definitely high. It was nearly impossible for physical-type attacks to cause a lot of damage. Moreover, Chieftain-rank monsters had a recovery speed of 2% HP every 5 seconds when in battle. That meant the Kobold Chieftain would recover 42 HP every 5 seconds. It was not a number to look down upon. An average level 5 player with physical-type damage might not even be able to deal 42 damage within 5 seconds. As for using the smoke bombs to kill the Kobold Chieftain safely, that was completely impossible. A chieftain monster's range of vision was extremely wide. Even a kobold would have a vision range of 55 yards. Using the smoke bomb to reduce its vision by 10 yards would still leave it with 45 yards. Even for rangers who had the furthest firing range of 40 yards, it was not enough. Shi Feng thought through it again and again as he looked at the kobold chieftain before him, helplessly laughing. Do I really have to use that? Chapter 17, Magic Weapon Released, Famed Swordsman Born. "Brother Feng, can we really beat this Kobold Chieftain?" Blackie had not an ounce of confidence in him when he looked at the Kobold Chieftain. Ignoring its horrifying amount of HP, the giant axe on its back was enough to terrify someone. If Blackie were hit with that axe, he would definitely turn into meat paste within an instant. "I don't know." Shi Feng shook his head. Plans can never keep up with change. There was not a single terrain within the mine that could be used. They could only fight the Kobold Chieftain head-on if they wanted to kill it. The Kobold Chieftain was the most powerful monster Shi Feng had met up with to this point. If he had enough time, Shi Feng would come here when he was level 5 with a full body of bronze equipment. He would have an 80% chance by then. However, there was little left of the time that Forging Master Jack gave him. If he wanted to finish the battle within the 20 minutes remaining, then he would need to send out a small party of level 5 elites to do so. However, there were only 2 of them. Their equipment was also poor. Trying to kill the Kobold Chieftain within 20 minutes was utterly impossible. However, there would be dire consequences if the quest was not finished. There was only one chance to do this hidden quest. If it failed, Shi Feng would not be able to receive it ever again. Thus, Shi Feng was even more unwilling to give up this quest. "I can only try it." Shi Feng unwillingly took out the magic weapon, Abyssal Blade. In his previous life, the number of magic weapons Shi Feng had personally witnessed could be counted on his fingers. Anybody who had seen a magic weapon's power would be brought to submission by it. Whereas, those who could properly wield a magic weapon was as rare as a phoenix's feather. Crimson War God was one such person. He had grown to fame within a guild war that had involved over 100,000 people. During that war, Crimson War God held a bloodied magic weapon, the Crimson Ghost Axe. He rushed into groups of thousands of warriors with the axe and slaughtered. There was no one who could block his giant axe. In the end, the enemy guild was forced to retreat in embarrassment. Crimson War God had created the scene of one man defending against 10,000. After that war, he built up the glorious War God Empire. There was also the madman, Windchaser. He held the magic weapon Evil Spirit's Roar. With only the bow in hand, Windchaser had single-handedly defended a city. Of the thousands of enemy players, not one of them could enter within 100 yards of the city. Using a single arrow, Windchaser had even sniped Outstandingly Extraordinary, the guild leader of Imposing Expert. Outstandingly Extraordinary had been standing further than 100 yards from the city at that time. As long as they were a magic weapon user, then they would be famous, top-tier experts in God's domain that were respected by all. "System, do you wish to bind the Abyssal Blade?" Shi Feng sucked in a deep breath, choosing to bind. He did not care anymore about the backlash of the magic weapon. Since those people could control the magic weapons, then how could he, as a reincarnated person, lose to those newbies that had yet to grow up? The moment the binding was finished, Shi Feng could clearly feel his entire body's strength being sapped away. His levels as well dropped one after the other, becoming level 0 within an instant. In another moment, however, a force of strength started flowing through his body. His body's current constitution was even stronger than when he was level 3. When he checked the Abyssal Blade attributes, Shi Feng became even more shocked. Abyssal Blade, magic weapon, one-handed sword. Attack power 24. All attributes plus 10. Attack speed plus 3. Ignore monsters level by 5. Attacks have a 15% chance to cause 2x damage, 10% chance to induce Doom Curse, reducing all stats by 30%, lasting 20 seconds. If wielder belongs to any swordsman job, all skill levels plus 2. Increase free ability points received by 2 points for every increase in level. Equipment level 0. Can be leveled up. Devour 10 level 5 bronze equipment and 1 level 5 mysterious iron equipment to level up to level 5. Can be evolved, unknown. Additional skill 1, Phantom Kill. Instantly creates a doppelganger. You can control this doppelganger. Doppelganger will have 50% of original body's attributes and all skills. At the same time, doppelganger and the original body can be swapped. Duration of 30 seconds. Cooldown, 5 minutes. Additional skill 2, Abyssal Bind. Binds enemies and prevents movement, reducing defense by 100%. Duration of 3 seconds. Cooldown, 1 minute. Additional skill 3, 9 Dragon Slash. Instantly create 9 phantoms of the Abyssal Blade for the wielder to use. Each phantom sword is capable of dealing up to 30% damage. Duration of 20 seconds. Cooldown, 5 minutes. The Abyssal Blade was personally created by Master Smith Alices, using the Black Dragon King's fangs as material. It is one of 36 famed swords and it is ranked 31st. However, this sword has been cursed by the Black Dragon King. Aside from being able to provide the wielder with immense strength, there would be a backlash after a certain period of time. If the wielder is unable to suppress the backlash, the wielder will receive the curse of the Black Dragon King, permanently reducing all attributes by 50%. Unable to be dropped. Unable to be traded. Seeing such attributes and these many additional skills, the Abyssal Blade was no different than a god's weapon. However, there were still 35 of these famed swords, and the Abyssal Blade was just one of the lower-ranked ones. It was hard to imagine what kind of sword the first-ranked was. Brother Feng, please don't scare me. How did you become level 0? Glancing at Shi Feng from the side, Blackie became shocked. It had already been troublesome just facing the Kobold Chieftain. Now that Shi Feng had fallen back to level 0, how could they fight it? Relax. Use the smoke bombs to clear off the small mobs first. Leave the Kobold Chieftain to me. Shi Feng called up the attribute panel, placing all 6 free attribute points into agility. His agility had reached 20 points exactly, activating fast and nimble. Shi Feng was very eager to test his sword on the Kobold Chieftain. Character: Yi Feng, human. Affiliated kingdom: Star Moon. Title: Might of 1000. Job: Swordsman. Level: 0. HP: 460/460. Attack power: 72. Defense: 4. Attack speed: 10. Movement speed: 8. Attributes: Strength 24, Agility 20, Endurance 22, Intelligence 13, Vitality 13. System: Strength has reached 20 points. Activating hidden basic skill, Smashing Fists. Able to destroy trash weapons with bare hands. System: Endurance has reached 20 points. Activating hidden basic skill, Robust Physique. Along with the activation of the hidden basic skills for strength and endurance, Shi Feng could now utilize the full potential of his current body. He was no longer a 3-second hero. Although he was level 0, his current attack power and attributes were far above that of when he was level 3. His HP was even more awesome. It wasn't any worse than a level 5 shield warrior's HP. Not to mention Shi Feng still had a bunch of high-level skills. He could definitely fight it out with the Kobold Chieftain. While Shi Feng was getting used to his body, Blackie had cleared all of the kobolds in the surrounding areas, leaving behind only the Kobold Chieftain. Wait for me to pull aggro, then you can start madly attacking. Shi Feng instructed. Taking a step forward, Shi Feng rushed towards the Kobold Chieftain. Wind Blade. In the blink of an eye, Shi Feng had arrived in front of the Kobold Chieftain. The Kobold Chieftain had yet to react before 2 streaks of black light slashed at its neck. Suddenly, blood splashed from its neck, causing the Kobold Chieftain to scream in pain. 2 frightening damages appeared above its head. -63-128. The Kobold Chieftain finally reacted. However, just as it lifted its giant axe, another sword flash passed through an unprotected area of its body. Chop. Another -105 damage appeared on the Kobold Chieftain. The power of a level 4 chop was shocking. When the giant axe landed on the ground, it created a large crater. However, Shi Feng had long since retreated and followed up by using a level 4 thundering flash. 3 streaks of violent thunder passed through the Kobold Chieftain's gigantic body, creating damages of -84, -101, -123. Shi Feng had taken over 600 HP away from the Kobold Chieftain after just a single exchange. The might of the famed sword, the Abyssal Blade, even shocked Shi Feng himself. Blackie, who stood a distance away, was even more dumbfounded. Chapter 89 Dragon Slash. The Kobold Chieftain became enraged when he was dealt the heavy damage by Shi Feng's surprise attack. The blood that leaked from its wound became its stimulant. The Kobold Chieftain raised its giant axe, bombarding Shi Feng with one attack after another. The Kobold Chieftain could not react appropriately towards Shi Feng's previous surprise attack. It could only instinctively attack, so its attacks were aggressive. Against the wild attacks of the Kobold Chieftain, even a level 5 shield warrior or guardian knight would die within an instant. Shi Feng could only retreat under such intense attacks. He did not have any chance to retaliate. He also needed to dodge the incoming rubble the size of fists. If they hit him, it would cause quite an amount of damage. A man and a beast exchanged moves at high speeds. If it were an average man, he most likely would not be able to make a single move. He would be halved by the giant axe, becoming very much dead. Blackie, hurry and attack it. I can't hold on for much longer. Shifeng had been dodging for a whole 7 or 8 seconds now. When he saw Blackie having yet to attack, he shouted loudly. They were currently facing a chieftain boss, not a little elite. The attack patterns of a chieftain boss were not as monotonous as an elite's. It had a variety of attacks. The chieftain boss was a monster that possessed intelligence. It would even change its attack pattern for specific players. Couple that with a strength that was 2 to 3 times that of a normal elite, the chieftain boss was stronger than an elite by at least 4 times. Although Shifeng had only exchanged blows with the kobold chieftain for 7 or 8 seconds, it felt like several minutes had gone by. Just from blocking attacks and the occasional counter-attack had already taken over 100 HP from Shifeng. If this situation continued, it wouldn't be long before his HP reached 0. With the famed sword, Abyssal Blade, Shifeng's attributes were greatly increased. It allowed 3 hidden basic skills that were most important to a melee player to be activated. With these skills, Shifeng was able to exhibit extraordinary attacks and dodges continuously. If he did not possess the Abyssal Blade, Shifeng would have died long ago. Ah, I'll come help you, Brother Feng. Blackie realized his mistake as he finally reacted. He hurriedly waved his staff, his mouth chanting a curse. After aiming at the kobold chieftain, he shot a dark arrow. The dark arrow landed on the kobold chieftain's body, only dealing 17 points of damage. Blackie's mouth became wide open after seeing this damage. He couldn't help becoming astonished by a chieftain monster's defense. Blackie could cause over 50 damage if he attacked a level 5 monster, however, it was only a third of that amount now. It could be seen how shocking a chieftain monster's defense was. On the other hand, Shifeng could deal over 100 damage in a hit. What kind of attack power was that? Shifeng abruptly slashed the Abyssal Blade in mid-battle. Chop. A black light dug itself through a gap in the kobold chieftain's attack. Shifeng took 3 steps backward before stabilizing his body, over 30 damage appearing above his head. On the other hand, only the kobold chieftain's giant axe was pushed back, pausing slightly in midair. It worked. It seems like my strength is just barely enough. Shifeng was very satisfied with the attack this time. During battles within God's domain, not only could players defend and dodge, but they could also interrupt a monster's attack. This would cause the monster's attack to stop briefly, ending the monster's offensive. It was a high-leveled battle technique. Such techniques only started becoming popular half a year after God's domain's opening, especially in boss battles. If the MT main tank did not learn such techniques, the end result would be a party wipe. This was because there were no players capable of blocking a boss' crazed and continuous attacks. The kobold chieftain's momentary pause had caused it to reveal a weak point. Shifeng rushed in without hesitation. Gathering all his strength into his hand, Shifeng gripped the Abyssal Blade tightly and continuously struck the kobold chieftain. 4 streaks of sword light hit the unarmored parts of the kobold chieftain. With the damage amplification effect, Shifeng's attack instantly took to 300 HP away from the kobold chieftain. Adding in Blackie's attack, the kobold chieftain only had little over 900 HP remaining. No. The kobold chieftain started going into a frenzy. It threw its giant axe to a side, pulling out 2 machetes from its waist. The change in weapons caused the kobold chieftain's attack patterns to change. If the kobold chieftain was a berserker when he held the giant axe, then after wielding the pair of blades, the kobold chieftain was a dual-wielding swordsman. The kobold chieftain now combined strength with agility, no longer just using violence to oppress its opponent. The attack pattern of the pair of blades was no longer monotonous. The kobold chieftain's attack speed had a large increase as well. Just after Shifeng dodged one of the blades, the other came following behind. Shifeng hurriedly used the Abyssal Blade to block it. Dazzling sparks were created when the blade and sword intersected with each other. Shifeng's entire person was sent flying away. When Shifeng was still in midair, he saw the kobold chieftain leaping with all its might, its machete raised high for a frontal assault. Is it going all out? Shifeng was shocked, hurriedly using parry. Hong. The Abyssal Blade blocked the machete. However, Shifeng was like a meteorite as he fell heavily to the ground. Shifeng had thought the kobold chieftain's attack to be over. However, as it fell from the sky, its twin blades plunged downwards as well, with Shifeng's chest as their target. Shifeng was unable to move to dodge the attack. Phantom kill. Instantly, a doppelganger of Shifeng appeared 3 yards away from him. With lightning speed, Shifeng swapped places with his doppelganger. When the Kobold Chieftain landed, both its blades stabbed into the doppelganger's chest. The doppelganger's HP madly fell, over 300 HP disappearing within an instant. Just as the Kobold Chieftain revealed an excited smile, Shifeng appeared behind its back. The abyssal blade in his hand was also letting out a faint black glow. 9 Dragon Slash. 9 phantoms of the abyssal blade appeared, silently floating in midair and circling Shifeng. Although Shifeng could not completely control all 9 swords, using the 9 of them for a simple attack was not a problem. Shashasha. 9 abyssal blades danced as if they were playful sprites, continuously penetrating the Kobold Chieftain's body. Small values that were just over -10 continuously appeared on the Kobold Chieftain's head. Although the damage was very low, the quantity was high. Including Shifeng's chop and normal attacks, the Kobold Chieftain's HP fell close to 500 HP. Seeing the Kobold Chieftain wanting to turn around, Shifeng did not dare give it any chance for a counterattack. Immediately Shifeng used Abyssal Bind. The Kobold Chieftain could not move for 3 seconds, and its defense was reduced by 100%. In a battle where even blinking would get you killed, 3 seconds was enough to change the results. The Kobold Chieftain could not move after being bound by the pitch-black chains which came from the Abyssal Blade. The 9 Abyssal Blades continued attacking without stop, creating damages of over -20 with each hit. The Kobold Chieftain's HP madly fell, leaving it with only around 200 HP within a moment. Oh whoa! The Kobold Chieftain bellowed as it became thoroughly berserk, its body size becoming 2 folds larger. Shifeng watched as the 3 seconds passed by. The Kobold Chieftain's strength was no joke after becoming completely berserk. Its strength had increased by at least 30%. However, all of Shifeng's attacks and life-saving skills were still on cooldown. As if having seen through Shifeng's distress, the Kobold Chieftain's face revealed a mocking expression. 2 large blades came crashing towards Shifeng, their speeds like that of flying arrows. At the moment of life and death, Shifeng noticed a kobold miner respawning from the corner of his eyes. Immediately, Shifeng activated Gravity Liberation followed by Wind Blade. With lightning speed, Shifeng dodged the chop from the twin blades and rushed towards the kobold miner's front. Ow! 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 When the Kobold Chieftain saw the near-death Shifeng actually dodging its attack, its strong legs abruptly stomped on the ground, pushing it straight towards Shifeng. Blackie felt chills down his back as he watched Shifeng fighting. Regardless, his mouth never stopped chanting curses, sending out one dark arrow after another. However, the Kobold Chieftain's speed was too fast, trying to hit it was just too hard. Fortunately, there was more than a 20-yard distance between the Kobold Chieftain and Shifeng. The Kobold Chieftain would still need some time to catch up to Shifeng. Within this period, Shifeng might even be able to kill off the Kobold Chieftain with the 9 phantoms of the Abyssal Blade. However, both Shifeng and Blackie had underestimated the Kobold Chieftain's explosive strength. Not only were its strength and defense greatly increased, even its agility had a great increase. It only took 2 seconds for the Kobold Chieftain to reach over 20 yards. The Kobold Chieftain lifted its twin blades, strongly slashing it down. The kobold miner in front of Shifeng was split into 2, and a rain of blood fell 5 yards around it. This slash had closely brushed past Shifeng's cheek, nearly taking his life away. Seeing the Kobold Chieftain preparing to slash down its other blade, Shifeng strongly raised the Abyssal Blade in his hand. 3 streaks of thunder penetrated the Kobold Chieftain's body, taking away its last remaining 130 HP. Seeing the Kobold Chieftain finally fall, Shifeng let loose a breath of relief. The Chieftain monster is truly too strong. Even if Shifeng came here at level 5 fully equipped with bronze equipment, he would still be a goner. He could only kill it due to luck. Compared to a level 2 Thundering Flash, the level 4 Thundering Flash only had a cooldown of 24 seconds. The cooldown had finished just in time, allowing Shifeng to escape death. System: Level 5 Kobold Chieftain killed. Level difference of 5. EXP obtained increased by 500%. Obtained 2350 EXP. Shifeng immediately rose to 76% of level 1. System: Congratulations for becoming the first player to kill a chieftain monster. Kobold Chieftain's item drop increased by 200%. Reputation in Starmoon Kingdom increased by 10 points. Suddenly, the Kobold Chieftain's body started expanding. Its size continued increasing until its body exploded with a boom, scattering a pile of items all over the floor. Chapter 19, Evil Whip. When the Kobold Chieftain exploded, items scattered all over the floor. Copper coins paved the floor as well in a copper glow, shining through the entire mine as if celebrating Shifeng's success. At the moment, Blackie sat paralyzed on the ground, cold sweat pervading his entire body. It was as if all of his strength was sapped out from his body. He could not care less about the drops on the ground. This battle was truly difficult. There was no time to even take a breath. Every minute and every second were a soul-shocking moment that stimulated the eyes. Every moment of the battle just toyed with Blackie's heart. He would not be able to take it at all if he did not have a strong heart. As for Shifeng, who could battle against the Kobold Chieftain head-on, what kind of heart did he possess? This is too great. We won, Brother Feng. You really are my idol. Blackie loudly shouted in extreme excitement. Seeing Shifeng's calm face, Blackie was filled with respect for him. Although Shifeng's former strength was quite good, surpassing many average players, he was still just an average professional player. Shifeng's skill had never been out of reach for Blackie. Shifeng had been previously quick to get excited. He would even get into an endless conflict over a piece of common equipment as if he was an unsheathed blade. However, the current Shifeng was hugely different than before. It was as if he became a different person. The present Shifeng was extremely calm and did things without hesitation. He gave off a certain serenity that resembled that of a dormant dragon. He did not do anything outstanding normally, yet when he did, it would shock the world. Blackie, wasn't your idol Gentle Snow? Shifeng slightly smiled as he said so. Of course Gentle Snow is my idol. However, you're awesome as well, Brother Feng. Usually you keep quiet without revealing anything, but now that you've shown it, even such a powerful Kobold Chieftain was done in by you. Not even a true professional gamer could compare to you, so how could I not admire you? As they said, the shade is better under a large tree. Brother Feng, you should teach me how to play a Cursemancer. Even in my dreams, I've dreamt of becoming a professional gamer. In Blackie's eyes, Shifeng was just like a mountain of gold. He was glad for the choice he had previously made. If he had gone to Shadow Workshop, he would probably still be a nameless gold farming member. He wouldn't even have the chance to meet an expert. Forget about becoming a real expert. All right. Shifeng smiled. Blackie's character was just so straightforward. When Shifeng was fired in his previous life, Blackie had resigned as well without hesitation. Blackie had given up a job with an annual income of millions just to share the suffering together with him. Naturally, Shifeng wouldn't betray Blackie. He would teach Blackie whatever he could. Although Shifeng had not played a Cursemancer before, he had still observed plenty of expert Cursemancers. Shifeng knew the general direction to develop a Cursemancer, and it was more than enough to give pointers to Blackie. Brother Feng, how do you think I should place my points early on? Do I go full intelligence? Blackie asked. Shifeng shook his head, saying after some thought, although it isn't bad to go full intelligence during the beginning periods, agility is a must if you wish to become a powerful Cursemancer. Aside from just increasing your movement speed, agility can also increase your casting speed. Cursemancers have very few life-saving skills, are slow runners, and have many skills that require chanting. A Cursemancer's spells are also weak in power. They mainly rely on curses to deal damage. However, unlike elementalists who are literal cannons, time is required for a Cursemancer to unleash that damage fully. Hence, after adding intelligence up to 20 points, you should place half of your free ability points into agility. This will ensure your safety as well as allow you deal more damage. In Shifeng's previous life, there was an extremely powerful Cursemancer. That person had broken the traditional point allocation method of a Cursemancer by adding a large amount of agility. Not only could he deal damage both quickly and fiercely, but he was even more powerful in PK. He had destroyed assassins that were counters to mages. Even in death, those assassins had not landed a single hit on that Cursemancer, breaking the law that stated mages would die if they were closed in by a melee player. After that incident, many Cursemancers had started adding agility, causing assassins to be endlessly depressed as they became bullied constantly by Cursemancers. Blackie nodded his head. He felt that Shifeng's words made sense, saying with a smile, "All right then. After my intelligence reaches 20 points, I'll go full agility." After finished discussing how to add points for a Cursemancer, Shifeng and Blackie started picking up the drops. The Kobold Chieftain deserved to be a chieftain-ranked monster. Adding on that it was the first kill, its drops were extremely bountiful. It had dropped a total of 8 pieces of bronze equipment, 1 gray giant axe, 2 plate armor, 2 leather armor, 3 cloth armor. Aside from those, there were also 273 coppers and 3 skill books. There was Mock for shield warriors, Silent Steps for assassins, and Evil Whip for cursemancers. Blackie, your luck really is too good. This Evil Whip skill book is rare with an extremely low drop rate. It is also one of the few control and damage skills that a cursemancer has. As long as the skill's level is high, it will become a godly skill for grinding monsters. Shi Feng tossed the Evil Whip skill book to Blackie without hesitation. He also gave 2 of the level 2 cloth armor to Blackie. Evil Whip. Cast time 3 seconds. Use 5 thorns to bind a target in a fixed area. As long as the target exits the area and breaks the thorns, every thorn will cause a base damage of 20 points, with an additional 30% spell damage. Cooldown 20 seconds. Blackie became ecstatic when he saw the skill, learning it quickly. With this skill, his battle standards would be increased by a big leap. After he switched to the 2 pieces of equipment, it was as if he turned from an air gun into an artillery cannon. Blackie's intelligence increased to 20 points, increasing his spell damage to 48, and also activating the hidden basic skill for intelligence, Rapid Cast. Rapid Cast allows the player to skip the chance of spells that are below 1.5 seconds, requiring only action to cast it. Also allows the caster to better focus on attacking their target. As for the 2 pieces of plate armor, they were the recruit's heavy armor and black steel arm guard. However, amongst these pieces of bronze equipment, Shi Feng only fancied the black steel arm guard's attributes. Black steel arm guard, bronze rank, plate armor. Level 3. Equipment requirements: Strength 9. Defense plus 14. Strength plus 2, Endurance plus 2, Agility plus 1. Durability 20/20. The recruit's heavy armor was just mediocre. The level 5 recruit's heavy armor could not compare to the sky armor at all. However, plate armors were still precious, so it could be sold for a good price. The 2 pieces of level 3 bronze leather armor could be sold as well. Amongst these pieces of equipment, the most valuable one was the Grey Giant Axe. It was definitely the darling of berserkers. Grey Giant Axe, bronze rank. Level 5. Equipment requirements: Strength 15. Attack power plus 21. Strength plus 5, Endurance plus 2. Durability 30/30. It was the absolute weapon for violence. If a berserker got a hold of this weapon, their damage would become extremely violent and horrifying. If I could create a hype over this Grey Giant Axe, it would definitely be worth a lot of money. Shi Feng slightly smiled. He had a plan in his heart to make a load of money using the Grey Giant Axe. Afterward, Shi Feng and Blackie returned to the smithy. Master Jack, I've killed the Kobold Chieftain. This is its skull. Shi Feng said respectfully as he took out a kobold skull. Master Jack, who was currently hammering away on steel, glanced at the kobold skull. After he confirmed that Shi Feng had done it, he satisfyingly said, "Not bad, young man. It seems you do have the right to inherit my forging skills." System: Hidden Quest Road of Forging completed. Player has learned forging. Player has become a basic forging apprentice. Player has obtained the forging talent, Forging Genius. Rewarding 10 pieces of 100 refinement steel. Forging Genius. After a successful forging, there is a fixed chance to increase 2 proficiency points. 2 proficiency points were not to be looked down on. It should be known that a basic forging apprentice making a piece of common equipment only had a 20% success rate. After successfully making the equipment, there was a 40% chance to obtain 1 proficiency point. Now, however, Shi Feng had a chance to obtain 2 proficiency points as long as his forging was successful, increasing his efficiency for promotion to the next rank by several folds. Becoming an intermediate forging apprentice required 1,000 proficiency points. An average player required more than 10 days at the very least to become one. Their supply of materials must also be continuous, as the horrifying rate of failure would waste large amounts of materials. With the forging talent, Shi Feng could now save a lot of materials, saving him quite the amount of money. On the other hand, 100 refinement steel was a good support material for making bronze equipment. It could increase the success rate of making a bronze equipment by 10%. With the forging talent and book of forging, Shi Feng couldn't help but wish to start forging equipment immediately. However, he needed materials if he wanted to forge equipment, and in a large amount as well. If he were to collect the materials himself, it would waste too much time. He could only purchase them in bulk. However, that required a lot of money. Not only that, making common equipment would not earn him any money, but instead cause him to lose it. Only bronze equipment could be sold for a good price, but that required forging designs that Shifeng did not have. Deathly Forest is a must-go. Shifeng thought about the bronze equipment forging design that could be obtained from within the Deathly Forest. The equipment that could be forged using the forging design was both cheap to make and had very good attributes. In his previous life, there were quite a few forgers who became rich because of that design. Just as Shifeng turned around to leave. "Young man, you truly make me look differently at you. Even after so many years of forging weapons, it is still my first time seeing a magic weapon." Master Jack called out to Shifeng. He had sent his gaze towards the pitch-black sword hanging around Shifeng's waist. Even if the black sword was rusty and looked like a fire poker, it could not escape the eyes of a master forger. Chapter 20, Curse of the Abyssal Blade. Shifeng was surprised when Master Jack stopped him. "Young man, are you willing to let me have a look at this sword?" Master Jack looked at Shifeng with eyes filled with a burning desire. His tone was no longer indifferent, but instead a little whispered. "This?" Shifeng was at a loss at Master Jack's sudden initiative request. However, it seemed logical after Shifeng gave it some thought. The preciousness of a magic weapon, not to mention a famed sword forged by a master smith, went without saying. A famed sword was the lifelong pursuit of every master forger. They would definitely want to experience it after seeing one. Seeing Shifeng hesitating, Master Jack quickly said, "You can be at ease. I only wish to see it and I won't let it be for nothing. If you have any requests, do mention them." When Shifeng heard this sentence, he became extremely excited. This was a master forger. Just by simply forging, he could create a piece of equipment of mysterious iron rank, secret silver rank even. His request was just to have a look at Shifeng's sword. Shifeng agreed without hesitation. He passed the abyssal blade over to Master Jack. NPCs couldn't steal items from players, so he was completely unworried whether or not Master Jack would do away with the abyssal blade. He would allow Master Jack to look at it however he wished afterward. Shifeng would ask for a secret silver one-handed sword. By then he would be able to fully display a swordsman's true strength. Master Jack held the abyssal blade that looked like a fire poker, both praising the delicateness of the blade and marveling at its strength. After looking at it for over 10 minutes, Master Jack unwillingly returned the abyssal blade to Shifeng. "Young man, this is a good and infinitely powerful sword. However, the curse on this sword is extremely evil. The more you unleash the power of this sword, the stronger the curse will get. At the very end, its wielder will become trapped in the endless abyss. It will be too difficult if you wish to control this sword with your strength, and the curse will easily devour you," Master Jack earnestly cautioned. Shifeng knew about this point. Otherwise, he wouldn't have hesitated for such a long time before binding the abyssal blade. "Master Jack, do you perhaps have any methods to weaken the curse?" Shifeng asked. Although he knew some weakening methods, he did not have the ability to carry them out right now. "Young man, you should know that the master smith Alice's forged this sword. There is only one of it in God's domain, and only one of the other 35 famed swords could match up to it. Many unimaginably terrifying existences were killed in order for these famed swords to possess unparalleled power. After death, these existences were sealed into each sword by master smiths. It was impossible to suppress these swords without extremely great power." Master Jack's tone was filled with unparalleled reverence, but he immediately smiled and said, "However, it isn't that there is no way to weaken the curse." "May I ask what kind of method is there?" Shifeng quickly asked. "If you wish to suppress a great power, you would need an equally great power to do so. The power sealed within the sword is a curse. If you wish to weaken it, you will need to have sufficiently great luck." Master Jack lamented, "In the continent of God's domain, some stones have gathered the luck of God's domain. These stones are named lucky stones. As long as you have a lucky stone, then you could counterbalance the curse. Although this piece of stone could be found throughout the whole continent, there are only a very few people who could obtain it. Even I have not seen it before. Trying to find one is truly too difficult. If you can find a piece of this stone, then I can help you weaken the curse on your sword." Seeing Shifeng's slack expression, Master Jack shook his head in consolation, saying, "Young man, you have to know that the lucky stone is extremely rare. You shouldn't feel discouraged. It is normal not being able to find one. Only those who are blessed by God can obtain a lucky stone, and they are people that we cannot compare to." "Master Jack, is it this piece of stone?" Shifeng slightly smiled as he took out the dark green-colored star crystal. "Right, this is a lucky stone," Master Jack nodded his head after seeing the dark green-colored star crystal. However, he became stunned a moment later. He was looking at Shi Feng as if he were looking at a monster. Shi Feng shrugged his shoulders, indicating that it was nothing. Shi Feng had been sluggish before because he found out that Master Jack was able to use the lucky stone to suppress the abyssal blade. It should be known that there was quite a few Master Forgers in the Starmoon Kingdom. However, the number of Master Forgers capable of using a lucky stone to suppress the curse of a magic weapon could be counted on a single hand. Shi Feng had never thought that the Master Jack in front of him would be one of them. Master Jack, can you weaken the curse now? Shi Feng asked with anticipation. After a few moments, Master Jack finally recovered to his previous calmness. Pretending to be indifferent, he said, "Okay, no problem. I can finish it within half an hour." To the side, Blackie held onto his stomach as he tried his best not to laugh. However, Master Jack's stupefied expression was truly too much for Blackie. He had to run off into the forest before laughing loudly. Half an hour later, Shi Feng received the abyssal blade. He discovered some changes to the abyssal blade's introduction. The abyssal blade was personally created by Master Smith Alice's, using the Black Dragon King's fangs as material. It is one of 36 famed swords and it is ranked 31st. However, this sword has been cursed by the Black Dragon King. Aside from being able to provide the wielder with immense strength, there will be a backlash every so often. However, after being remodeled by Jack using a star crystal, the strength of the backlash has been greatly reduced. If the wielder is unable to suppress the backlash, then the wielder will receive the curse of the Black Dragon King, permanently reducing all attributes by 50%. Shi Feng's heart relaxed by a lot after seeing the description in this paragraph of words. At the very least, the backlash won't be too powerful in a short period of time. Shi Feng stored away the abyssal blade. Suddenly he noticed a lot of messages that had been sent by Lonely Snow. All of the messages asked why Shi Feng had yet to arrive, and how much longer would he need to reach the Deathly Forest. "Blackie, let's go dive into a dungeon." Shi Feng sent a reply message stating that he would come immediately. Because of the issue with the abyssal blade, Shi Feng had completely forgotten about the appointed time. He let Lonely Snow wait more than half an hour. However, Shi Feng would make the appropriate compensations within the Deathly Forest. "Okay. I was just worrying that I won't have a chance to try out my new spells," Blackie said excitedly. When Shi Feng and Blackie arrived at the dungeon area of the Deathly Forest, the entire Deathly Forest was filled with people. Level 2 players were everywhere, and many players were forming parties to enter the dungeon. Open party for Deathly Forest, welcoming violent damage dealers, for waiting for 2. Effective party for Deathly Forest, we are just missing a powerful healer, guaranteed to clear. Seeing such a scene, Shi Feng shook his head slightly. He walked towards Lonely Snow who was waving his arm. In Shi Feng's previous life, the players had been stuck at the Deathly Forest for a long time. The dungeon was only cleared when the majority of players were level 5. "Brother Expert, you're finally here. Those friends of mine are already becoming impatient from waiting. Let us hurry." Lonely Snow was burning with anxiety when he saw Shi Feng leisurely walking over. Afterward, Lonely Snow brought Shi Feng and Blackie to the gathering point of the party. "Lonely, this is the expert you said? I thought he was a person with 3 heads and 6 arms, but it seems he's nothing more than this." The male cleric, Wordless Summer Night, saw Shi Feng wearing novice equipment. There was also a fire poker that hung around his waist. It looked as if it was some trash weapon he had randomly picked up. When Wordless Summer Night saw this, he couldn't help but ridicule. "Brother Wordless, how could you say such things about Brother Expert? He is a dignified beta tester, so he definitely must have something extraordinary. Otherwise, how would he dare to take all equipment for Swordsman and Cursemancer?" The Shield Warrior, Battle to the End, stood to the side and sneered. The two of them had already felt displeasure for Shi Feng. This was because Shi Feng had wanted to take away all plate armor and mage equipment immediately after joining. Wouldn't they just be working away for nothing? If it were not for their boss wanting to have a look at Shi Feng, they would have long since invited other players and dove into the dungeon. Now that they saw Shi Feng in such poor equipment, they could criticize him and force him to leave. Lonely Snow wanted to retort as Shi Feng was someone he had personally invited. However, Shi Feng's equipment did not give Lonely Snow any chance to do so. He could only stare in silence. "Alright, let's party up. A lot of people have already entered the Deathly Forest. If we don't dive in, we won't have a chance at competing for the first kill." As the party's leader, the handsome male ranger, waving slowly but surely interrupted as he said. Blackie wanted to argue back but Shifeng stopped him. Shifeng thought nothing of the two people's ridicule. No matter what he said, he and Blackie had left them waiting for more than half an hour, so couldn't he just let them speak a few more sentences? Just as they finished partying up, the shield warrior furiously said, "Crap, this noob is just level 1. He's just here to swindle equipment." "Boss, Deathly Forest is a level 2 dungeon. If we let a level 1 noob enter the dungeon, aren't we just waiting to get wiped?" Wordless Summer Night looked towards the ranger, waving slowly, showing his displeasure. Lonely Snow was equally shocked when he saw Shifeng's level. It should be known that many players had already risen to level 2. How was it possible for a beta tester not to reach level 2? Boss waving slowly looked toward Shifeng. Before this he still had some hope for Shifeng, but now it was all gone. He suddenly said in a cold tone, "Did you die once before this?" "Nope." Shifeng shook his head, honestly saying, "However, entering Deathly Forest at level 1 is enough. Then you can go now. We don't need such an expert like you here. We hope you can understand." Waving slowly coldly said, his brows slightly wrinkled. "Boss, this must be a misunderstanding. How about we try it out first?" Lonely Snow explained. "Try it out?" Wordless Summer coldly laughed. "Then who will be responsible when we die? You should know that we still lose experience if we die in a dungeon. Although it is low, that is still 10%. Can this noob repay such a loss?" Wordless, don't make it hard for Lonely. Waving slowly repeatedly said, "Lonely, I know you are trying to cover for this swordsman, but I have to take responsibility for our party. I will only find veterans to enter the dungeon. I will not waste time partying up with a novice. You have two choices now. One is to follow us into the dungeon, 2 is to leave the party together with them." "I will leave the party." Shifeng did not want to embarrass Lonely Snow. He immediately left the party, turning to leave. "Blackie will party up with other people and enter the dungeon." "All right." Blackie smiled with a hee-hee, leaving the party without a second thought. Humph humph. The expert's identity has been seen through. At least he has some self-awareness to leave after knowing he can't swindle equipment anymore. The shield warrior grinned and jeered, "Lonely, you really are gullible. Such a noob would trick only you. You need to learn properly from Boss." Waving slowly in the future. Lonely Snow's face turned livid after hearing this. However, he did not feel that he was mistaken. Shifeng was definitely an expert. Boss waving slowly, "Sorry for this." Lonely Snow chose to leave the party. He was prepared to join Shifeng in order to determine whether or not his judgment was correct. "You." Waving slowly was immediately stunned. He never thought Lonely Snow would be so decisive. It was simply a foolish decision. He would have long since chased Lonely Snow away if it wasn't because he had good techniques. Wordless Summer Night looked towards Lonely Snow, saying with a cold smile, "Lonely, you better not regret the choice you made. You'll regret when we clear the Deathly Forest and obtain great equipment. You'll regret it for 10 years, 20 years that you didn't follow Boss." Waving slowly. Chapter 21, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Being said in such a way by Wordless Summer, Lonely Snow did not give any rebuttals. He only lowered his head and left, chasing after Shifeng. Waving slowly squinted his eyes. When he thought about Shifeng equipped in a body of trash equipment, he could not understand what method Shifeng had used to cause Lonely Snow to follow him. Lonely Snow had even given up on the clearing Deathly Forest. "Boss, let's ignore that foolish Lonely Snow. At worst, we'll start looking for people again. There are plenty of level 2 players now." Battle to the end, said in disdain as he watched Lonely Snow. Waving slowly nodded his head. Lonely Snow's leaving did not cause any loss to their party. As for Shifeng creating a party to dive into the Deathly Forest, not to mention clearing the dungeon, nobody would go in with a level 1 player. In front of the Deathly Forest's entrance, Shifeng and Blackie continuously shouted to recruit people. "Open party for Deathly Forest, no rigid requirements, okay as long as you're a veteran gamer. 2 waiting for 4. Shifeng shouted. When everyone heard of it, many level 2 players had run over. It was because Shifeng's requirements were very low. Many small parties would choose people based on equipment quality. They needed a few pieces of common equipment to pass. However, who would have that many pieces of common equipment in the early periods of the game? Party me. I'm already a level 2 cleric. Party me. I'm a level 2 shield warrior. I also have a piece of level 1 common plate armor arm guard. In just a moment, Shifeng had invited 4 people. These 4 people were quite happy originally. There were over 10 people currently present, but only they were chosen. However, after they saw the party leader Shifeng's level, they left the party in rage one after another. Fuck, it's just a noob coming to die in the deathly forest at level 1. If you want to enter the dungeon, enter it by yourself. I won't accompany you. No wonder there are no requirements for the party. Want us to give you a ride? Not a chance. The 4 people were extremely enraged, and the voices they made were practically roars. Every player at the deathly forest could hear it. Even a level 1 player dares boast about entering the deathly forest. He just wants to tag along for experience and equipment. Lucky for me I didn't go over. There are all sorts of birds in a large forest. Who would be foolish enough to enter the dungeon with a level 1 noob? Isn't that just looking to be abused? One after another, the level 2 players laughed at Shifeng for overestimating himself and for his foolishness. Get lost if you don't wish to party up. We're not begging you all to come. Blackie became enraged after listening to them. Shifeng's techniques had long since convinced him, yet these people were calling Shifeng a noob. Can a noob kill a level 2 rare elite when he was level 2? Can a noob kill a level 5 chieftain when he was level 0? These people were just a group of snobs and idiots. Crap, my knowledge has been widened. A level 1 noob party can be awesome. I really want to see how you two gather a full party. The cleric that just left the party said with a cold smile. At this moment, Lonely Snow ran over. When he saw Shifeng, he hurriedly said, "Brother expert, give me an invite. I want to enter the deathly forest together with you guys. I have 2 pieces of common plate armor equipment on me, defense is 24. All right. Shifeng immediately sent an invitation. Blackie never imagined that Lonely Snow would actually leave his original party and come to them. He suddenly had a good impression of Lonely Snow. Blackie clapped Lonely Snow's shoulders, heartily laughing. You have good eyes. Don't worry, following Brother Feng definitely won't be a mistake. Nonsense, nonsense. Lonely Snow was still slightly worried within his heart. The grinding spot Shifeng had simply pointed him to had allowed him to rise to level 2 quickly. However, Shifeng himself hadn't even reached level 2, and he was still wearing very poor equipment. Lonely Snow just couldn't understand how it could be so. The spectating players by the side all became dumbfounded. There was actually someone who would enter the dungeon with a level 1 noob. This person had good equipment at that. The brand new plate armor and boots on Lonely Snow must definitely be common equipment and not trash equipment. Although Lonely Snow had joined the party, not a single player had joined them after Shifeng had recruited for over 10 minutes. With just 3 of them alone, it was impossible to enter and clear the dungeon. At this moment, waving slowly but surely brought a group of people. Brother expert, still hasn't partied anybody? We've already invited another 3 strong members. All of them have at least 2 or 3 pieces of level 1 common equipment. The cleric Endless Summer Night said to Shifeng in ridicule. Waving slowly only sent a glance towards Shifeng, then moved his sight towards Lonely Snow saying, You won't have a future if you follow him around. Before we enter the dungeon you could still consider it over properly. I guarantee that you definitely won't suffer a loss. Afterward, Waving slowly shifted his gaze towards Blackie. Previously, all his attention had been on Shifeng, having ignored Blackie. Now that he took a closer look, Blackie's clothing looked brand new. Blackie was even holding a blackwood staff. His equipment should be quite good and he was also level 2 so his techniques should be good as well. You're not bad as well. Why don't you join our party? You should know that we are an elite party. It's not something average players could compare to. If we're together, leveling, grinding, and dungeon diving will be easy. Waving slowly looked at Blackie with a smile. Get lost. Trying to poach me over just based on your little party? Blackie scolded as he pointed his blackwood staff at Waving slowly. At the same time, he had selected to display the halo effect of the bronze equipment, saying, It's just 2 to 3 pieces of common equipment. I have 3 bronze equipment and 2 common equipment. Waving slowly and the others were shocked. They never thought Blackie was that powerful. He actually possessed 3 pieces of bronze equipment. During this period of time, a person having 2 to 3 pieces of common equipment was considered an expert. As for having a piece of bronze equipment, that person would definitely be an expert. Every guild would fight over for that person. However, the Blackie before them actually had 3 pieces of bronze equipment. Waving slowly's party also became surprised. When they saw the halo effect of the bronze equipment, their eyes had nearly popped out of their sockets. No wonder Shi Feng behaved that boldly. Shi Feng had nothing to fear because he had grabbed an expert's favor. Meanwhile, Lonely Snow, who stood beside Blackie, was slack-jawed. He looked at Blackie in disbelief. Lonely Snow had originally thought of Shi Feng as a rarely seen expert. He had never imagined that Blackie was the true great expert. Fellow brother, if you party up with such a noob and enter the dungeon, it would also be a burden on you. Not to mention failing to clear the dungeon, you might even have to die once. How about you come with us? All pieces of mage equipment from the dungeon are free for you to choose from. Although Waving Slowly was enraged for being given such a slap, if he could rope over Blackie, then the chances for clearing the dungeon would become a lot greater. I agree with your views. Joining a group of noobs such as yourselves really will be a burden to me, Blackie chuckled. You, Waving Slowly's face turned beet red, furiously saying, then let's see who clears the deathly forest first. Finishing his piece, Waving Slowly spun around and left. He did not believe that a party with a noob in it could clear the deathly forest. Humph, he's just a powerful damage dealer entering the dungeon. Does he really think he could clear it? Wordless Summer jealously murmured. Right. We are all veteran gamers. We are definitely stronger in dungeon diving than they are. The shield warrior curled his lips. After Waving Slowly's party left, the number of people applying for Shi Feng's party had also suddenly increased. Such an effect was mainly caused by the equipment that Blackie wore. At this period, bronze equipment was definitely the proof of an expert. Even if there was a noob as the party leader, an expert with 3 pieces of bronze equipment could be considered as strong as 2 people. The advantage of having such an expert was definitely greater than an average party. However, Shi Feng was no longer inviting people at random this time. There was a definite requirement. Such an action had caused the 4 players who had left Shi Feng's party previously to regret immensely. How could they have acted on impulse? Now, Shi Feng wouldn't give them a chance even if they wished to join. Just as Shi Feng was fervently recruiting party members. At the southwest part of the Deathly Forest Dungeon's entrance, a great disturbance suddenly appeared. Many players had run over, one after another, every one of them having excited expressions. It can't be. Meeting in such a place? Blackie's 2 eyes stared straight ahead. Shi Feng was also shocked. They could even meet such an important figure in a small location like Red Leaf Town. It was just unimaginable. Could it be that Red Leaf Town was a place that had crouching tigers and hidden dragons? Only Shi Feng had never discovered it before? Chapter 22, Recruitment Storm. As more players started going there, Shi Feng's area turned leisurely. Brother Feng, I'm not seeing things, right? Or am I dreaming right now? Blackie rubbed his eyes as he asked with uncertainty. Shi Feng was speechless. With a bitter smile, he looked towards the 3-man party that caused this disturbance. The newcomer was not just anybody, she was Blackie's idol, Goddess Gentle Snow. Gentle Snow's body was covered in a suit of gorgeous silver-colored plate armor, revealing her fine and curvaceous body. Adding to her angelic beauty and snow-cold temperament, even women's hearts would be moved by her, as well as a large group of men. Even Shi Feng couldn't help but admit that Gentle Snow was the most perfect woman he had seen before, be it regarding appearances, body, or temperament. There was not a single female celebrity who could match up to her. As for the 2 people on each side of Gentle Snow, Shi Feng was very familiar with them as well. He had seen them before on big news channels. They were all famous experts in God's domain. One of them was also an absolute beauty named Zhao Yueru. If Gentle Snow could be said to possess a perfect body and appearance, then Zhao Yueru possessed a devilishly enticing body and appearance. Every one of her movements was like a temptation that could influence a person's heart. Adding on the fiery red robe that she wore, her body radiated a wild-like charm. Such bewildering charms had caused many men wanting to go over and assault her. If you really did such a thing, however, then congratulations. You've just earned a one-way ticket directly to hell. This was because words such as big breasts, no brains and as delicate as a flower, were not applicable to Zhao Yueru. In God's domain she had another nickname of the Flame Witch. The reason why she held this title was that of the mountain of corpses she had piled up using these male players. There had once been a guild leader of a large guild that had tried assaulting Zhao Yueru. As a result, the guild that had over 100,000 players became no more. Zhao Yueru even hunted their guild leader. The incident only came to an end when that guild leader was killed back to level 0. From then on, the title of flame which had been cast on Zhao Yueru. Compared to the snow goddess and flame which, the priestess by their side could only be considered normal. She was not overly beautiful, her techniques were not bad, and she was also within the top 100 rankings of Starmoon Kingdom's priest leaderboard. Two absolute beauties plus a great beauty, such a combination had created brilliant scenery in the deathly forest. Hundreds of players surrounded them, trying to become acquainted with the three women. Unfortunately, the three beauties did not even look at them. Sister Yueru, these people are really scary. How about we return and level up? The timid Xiao Yueru whispered. Hehe Yueru, don't be afraid. With gentle snow here, even if you give these hateful vulgar men 10 times the courage, they wouldn't dare come over here, Zhao Yueru said with a smile, proudly sticking out her chest. Gentle Snow only nodded her head in reply. Regarding these salivating vulgar men, she did not even place them in her eyes. Although the drops from elite monsters are not bad, the drop rate for skill books is higher at the Deathly Forest. If we don't grind for a few more skill books, we will level up very slowly in the future, Gentle Snow quietly said. Zhao Yueru nodded her head in agreement. Although the three of them had killed quite many elite monsters, the number of skill books that dropped was very little. Until now, the three of them had yet to learn even 3 skills. It was really affecting their strength utilization and grinding efficiency. Effective party for Deathly Forest looking for a healer and MT, 3 waiting for 3. After taking a few looks, Shi Feng continued shouting. Although Gentle Snow and Zhao Yueru were indeed attractive, Shi Feng was no longer a child. He had seen plenty of beauties, especially after he became Shadow's captain. Many beauties would willingly throw themselves at Shi Feng. As for Gentle Snow and Zhao Yueru, it was good enough to just look at them for pleasure. Such beauties were not something Shi Feng could have thoughts about. His main goal right now was to get down to business. However, Shi Feng's shouting did not yield any replies. Not a single player had even glanced at him. All of them were staring and salivating at Gentle Snow's group of 3. Even Blackie was no exception. His eyes had nearly popped out of their sockets from staring. Shi Feng sighed, helplessly shaking his head, and continued shouting and recruiting people. Crap, what is this fool blabbering about? Do you really think anybody would commit suicide together with you in the dungeon? Quickly scram, you level 1 noob. Stop distracting me from looking at beauties. Quite a few players started to express their discontentment. 2 high-quality beauties had already shown up, yet instead of trying to get closer to them, Shi Feng was actually making noise here. What would you do if those beauties were scared off? That person is interesting. He can actually attract the hostility of so many people. Did he do something immoral before? Xiao Yueru revealed a crescent moon-like smile, giggling as she pointed at Shi Feng. Zhao Yueru aimed her eyes over as well. She felt nothing special from Shi Feng. He was even dressed in tattered clothing. Zhao Yueru felt that Shi Feng was just trying to seek attention from the crowd. She suddenly said in disdain, "He is definitely doing so to grab our attention. Let's not bother with him and quickly party up 3 people to dive the dungeon." Regarding the number of men who had tried to attract their attention, there were just too many of them. Zhao Yueru had seen all kinds of methods these men had used before, and Shi Feng's method was not a rare sight at all, but instead outdated. Gentle Snow did not voice out any opinions, only taking a look at Shi Feng. She felt an odd feeling coming from Shi Feng. This was the spirit of a hidden sword. Gentle Snow was especially concerned about the fire poker hanging around Shi Feng's waist. Gentle Snow, what happened to you? Zhao Yueru curiously looked at Gentle Snow. She did not understand why Gentle Snow would keep staring at the extremely ordinary Shi Feng. It's nothing. Maybe it's just my imagination. We should hurry up and recruit some people to dive the dungeon. Gentle Snow shook her head, no longer looking at the fire poker at Shi Feng's waist. Originally, Shi Feng's party already had trouble recruiting for people. However, because of Zhao Yueru's single sentence, nobody else had paid attention to Shi Feng's party, even if his party had an expert present. Shi Feng expressed his helplessness when seeing the hundreds of players queuing up in front of Zhao Yueru. The 3 women's arrival had really bad timing. Brother Feng, why don't we go over there as well? Blackie shamelessly suggested. Scram. What do you take me for? Shi Feng rolled his eyes at Blackie. This fellow was just too shameless, forgetting friendship after finding love. Instead, Lonely Snow was the better one. He was a truly honest man. In the beginning, Lonely Snow had only taken a few glances but stopped after giving out a few praises. He had even helped Shi Feng in recruiting people by his side. Blackie did not dare to speak again after being scolded by Feng. He could only silently look on in envy at those players in the queue. Over 10 minutes later, Feng still had not recruited a single person. Similarly, Gentle Snow's party had also not recruited a single person. However, in Feng's case, it was because nobody had come to join his party. Whereas for Gentle Snow's party, it was because the players that wanted to join did not match up to their specifications. One party was in heaven while the other was on earth. Feng had no more choices. He could not just continue dragging on in such a way, his time was precious. He could only make exceptions in recruiting. Efficient party for Deathly Forest, we have an expert leading the party, clear in one try, no limit to levels, looking for healers and damage dealers, 3 waiting for 3. However, Feng's words had caused many players to send over looks of disdain. Even if you were trying to attract attention, you should have a lower line. Currently, there had already been tens of level 2 players who had died out of the dungeon. Every one of them had said the Deathly Forest was impossible to clear. On the other hand, Feng said his party had no level limits. Then wasn't he trying to say that he only needed one person to clear the Deathly Forest? Was this possible? However, Feng's lower line had still attracted some players' attention. Within a few moments, a group of level 1 players had come running over to join. Chapter 23, Tyrant Bear. Tens of level 1 players came running over. The area in front of Feng's party had also started becoming lively. This person is really something. He is so desperate to enter the dungeon that he would even want level 1 noobs. Did he not know that there has already been a level 2 elite party that had returned after dying? Who cares about him? A noob is a noob after all. We won't be able to understand their thoughts. The long queue of level 2 players started laughing one after another at Feng's actions. They all wanted to watch Feng become a joke. Those guys are really interesting. Even I don't have much confidence in clearing the Deathly Forest, yet they actually want to clear it with a group of level 1 players. Zhao Yueru's lips curled up slightly, revealing an exuberant smile as she looked in Feng's direction. Her voice carried a hint of ridicule and disdain. Gentle Snow also sent a glance towards Feng from a distance. Feng's temperament was both calm and confident. He did not become angry from being laughed at. Every one of his movements was very mature, not much different from the experts in God's domain she had seen before. However, she did not understand from where Feng's confidence came. Deathly Forest was Red Leaf Town's first dungeon, and it was also everyone's first time being in touch with a dungeon in God's domain. Their difficulties were an unknown. Even the elite parties of guilds would carefully choose their members before entering the dungeon. On the other hand, Feng did not care in the slightest, as if just gathering 6 players was good enough. Maybe I'm just overthinking things. He's just a level 1 player, so how could he clear the Deathly Forest? Gentle Snow caressed her elegant hair, her heart no longer thinking about Feng's odd actions. She looked at her hand at the player information displayed on it. Level 2 Summoner, Magic Attack 28, HP 150, Defense 8, Movement Speed 4. Fail. Next. Afterward, another Cursemancer stepped forward. The person tensely sent his own attributes to the Snow Goddess, Gentle Snow. On the other side, Feng as well was looking at player data. Although he did not have a lower line, he did have a bottom line. The equipment and levels of these level 1 players were much worse than the level 2 players that Gentle Snow's party were recruiting. However, they were still players. As long as they did not simply add their 8 free attribute points early on, the chance of clearing the Deathly Forest with a 6-man party was very high. As for those shield warriors and guardian knights who solely added strength or weapons job but did not add agility, all of them were rejected. Big brother, please party me. Although I am just a level 1 guardian knight, I have a piece of level 0 common equipment. Also, all 8 of my attribute points are still available. I can completely add them based on your requirements. A youth named Kola pleaded, his eyes filled with expectations. Feng was slightly surprised. A guardian knight that did not add any attribute points could actually reach level 1. It was a masterpiece. It had to be known that guardian knights had very low attack, making the killing of monsters difficult. Normally they would party up to kill monsters. To increase grinding efficiency they would add a few points of strength. Otherwise leveling up would be too slow. Guardian Knight Kola? Kola? Kola. When Feng looked at Kola's face and also his tall and muscular body, he felt that it was somewhat familiar. Suddenly he entered into deep thought. His memory seemed to have such a person in it. That's right. It's Tyrant Bear. Shi Feng managed to remember it. Tyrant Bear's name was Kola. Tyrant Bear was the core MT of the first-rate guild, Brilliant Stars. During the early periods of God's domain, Tyrant Bear was constantly unsuccessful. He was even kicked out by third-rate guild, Heaven's Crown. After entering Brilliant Stars, Kola suddenly started to shine. He turned from being a normal party's MT into the core elite party's MT in the guild. He was ranked 15th on the Guardian Knight leaderboard of Starmoon Kingdom. Kola was known for both being able to attack and defend. Shi Feng had never thought that the Tyrant Bear would run up to him on his own. Kola was such a shy person as well. It was totally different from the Tyrant Bear of 10 years later. Suddenly Shi Feng had an idea. Currently the Tyrant Bear had yet to join Heaven's Crown, not to mention Brilliant Stars. If Shi Feng could poach Kola over and turn Kola into his own MT, then wouldn't dungeon diving in the future be a lot easier? Big brother, I guarantee that I will absolutely listen to your commands when inside the dungeon. Please consider it over. Kola's tone carried hints of begging. Shi Feng had nearly let loose a laugh. The great Tyrant Bear would actually speak in such whispered tones just for a position in the dungeon. However, Shi Feng still held it in. The level 1 players that had come here all held hopes of getting lucky. The other parties that entered the Deathly Forest with level 2 players were already no good, not to mention level 1 players like them. If they could enter once into the Deathly Forest and fortunately obtain 1 or 2 pieces of equipment, then it would be of great help to their future development. At that time, entering into a large guild would become much easier. Alright, I can add you in. Shi Feng's face turned grave as he said, however, you should know that bringing a level 1 noob like you into the Deathly Forest isn't easy. I can't just carry you through the Deathly Forest, and then after you get equipment you join some other elite parties. Wouldn't I just be striving for nothing? When Shi Feng finished his speech, quite a few level 1 players had suddenly sent over looks of disdain. Weren't you also a level 1 noob? However, Shi Feng did not care about what these people felt. He continued saying, I wish to form a stable party. Even if we need members, it would be with stability as the priority. If you wish to enter the dungeon you need to be prepared for the long term. When I call you for dungeon diving you must come. You cannot reject because you have some other matters. So what will be your choice? When the other players heard Shi Feng saying so, they suddenly turned quiet. Shi Feng's intentions were very clear. If you wish to enter the party, then you won't be able to join other parties in the future, not to mention joining a guild. Everybody knew that entering a guild was the best method to increase your own strength quickly. Currently they did not have the qualifications to join any of those guilds. So, they were here to try their luck, hoping to obtain 1 or 2 pieces of equipment. They might even be able to join those guilds afterward. So, how would they be able to give up their chances of entering a good guild just to enter a dungeon? Kola had also never imagined that Shi Feng would give such a demand. However, it was still reasonable. You couldn't just expect other people to bring you up, then leave when you become strong. However, Shi Feng lacked the persuasiveness when he said these words. At this moment, Blackie stood out and furiously said, just looking at you noobs, there is nobody that would want you down in the dungeon. And you still wish to join a guild in the future and enjoy their benefits? Are you thinking yourselves as experts, or are you taking us for idiots? Kola thought what Blackie, the expert, had said made sense. Even a level 2 expert with 3 pieces of bronze equipment was in this party, whereas Kola himself was just a novice noob. So what right did he have to complain? Many thanks for Big Brother Expert's pointers. Little brother will definitely strive to fulfill his own role. Kola continuously thanked Blackie. Blackie felt somewhat uneasy from being thanked and referred to as an expert by Kola. Blackie was just a complete imposter of an expert. However, being called such by someone made Blackie want to become an expert in God's domain even more. Blackie, beautifully done. Shi Feng stretched out a thumbs up, quietly praising Blackie. Shi Feng never imagined Blackie would tame the Tyrant Bear just like that. The Tyrant Bear had also called Blackie a big brother with a face full of respect. Blackie suddenly became confused. He did not understand what he had done that was worth being praised by Shi Feng. However, he was still very happy. At least he had done something for Shi Feng, although he didn't know what he had done exactly. Over 10 minutes later, Shi Feng finally gathered 6 players. They could start dungeon diving now. Chapter 24, Hell's Roar. Although Shi Feng's party was gathered, the observing level 2 players had started laughing. They were not laughing because all the players Shi Feng had invited were level 1. Instead, the jobs that were in the party were just too exotic. They couldn't help but laugh out loud. This noob really is something, and even I am starting to admire him. They're simply a suicide party. I really pity that expert for actually bringing along such an exotic player. The expert had even agreed to let him be the party's leader. The queued-up level 2 players started a debate, and there were quite a few players who were holding their stomachs while laughing loudly. He is just playing to the gallery. Zhao Yueru wrinkled her brows slightly. She turned her head away after taking a look at Shi Feng, her heart slightly discomfort. Before, she would be the focus of everyone wherever she went. Today, however, everyone's attention was on an inconspicuous noob like Shi Feng. Although everyone was jeering at him, he was still their focal point. Alright Yueru, we should hurry and gather enough people. If we waste any more time, we will be left behind by the frontline players. Although Gentle Snow felt that Shi Feng seemed to be an expert regarding levels, methods of recruiting people and such, he was just too far from being referred to as an expert. As for the notion of inviting Shi Feng into their guild, it was no longer present now. Their Ouroboros only accepted experts. Got it? Zhao Yueru turned towards the swordsman in front of her. With a little vengeance, she directly said, "Data's not bad, but too bad we don't want a swordsman." The swordsman suddenly became spiritless. How could he not see what Zhao Yueru meant? Subsequently, he turned his head and glared at the distant Shi Feng, his eyes filled with hatred. Meanwhile, Shi Feng, who knew nothing about what has happened, was currently activating the Deathly Forest. System: please select activation difficulty. System: normal hard hell. Shi Feng chose hell without hesitation. Suddenly, the transfer passage in front of the Deathly Forest changed. It changed from a silvery gray color to pitch black. At the same time, a flickering skull that had its mouth wide open could vaguely be seen. Meanwhile, the party members of Shi Feng's party all received a notification. System: you have chosen Hell mode of Deathly Forest. Death penalty increased by 100%. Suddenly, the faces of the members of the party turned deathly white. Death penalty increased by 100%? Doesn't that mean if they died within the dungeon, they would lose 20% of their EXP? 1 or 2 hours of effort were required to make up for that EXP. Brother Feng, you chose the wrong one. Aren't we going down the normal dungeon? Blackie hurriedly walked over and whispered a reminder. Nothing's wrong. It's Hell mode. What would I be doing here if it isn't to dive Hell mode? Shi Feng snapped. The drop rate for forging designs was extremely low. If it was normal mode, then Werewolf Felt's drop rate was only 1%. Hard mode had 5% and Hell mode had 30%. Although normal mode could be cleared without limit every day, who would have so much time to do so? Meanwhile, hard mode could only be cleared 5 times a day, and the probability of the forging design to drop was also not great. As for Hell mode, it could only be cleared once a day, but it was also the one that had the most hopes of dropping it. Feng. Brother Feng, what are you saying? Hell mode of the Deathly Forest? Just look at our party. It is problematic to even clear normal mode, not to mention Hell mode, Blackie panicked. Before, he had already seen several elite parties that had returned after dying. According to what these people had said, the monsters in the Deathly Forest were extremely strong. Their intelligence was extremely high as well. It was impossible to beat them without reaching level 4 or 5, so they had all left after giving up. If they dove into a Hell mode dungeon now with noobs like them, that would truly be going down into hell. Relax. If I weren't certain, even I wouldn't do it. Shi Feng clapped Blackie's shoulders, saying confidently with a smile. Alright, let's go inside then. Shi Feng led the party by entering first, followed by Blackie. Lonely Snow had also entered with a dazed head. He was prepared to tread this path to the very end. As for the remaining 3, they hesitated for quite some time. We better go in. The expert has already gone inside, so what do we, level 1 noobs, still have to be reluctant for? Moreover, we're entering the Hell mode of the Deathly Forest. Even mentioning it would be a glory, Kola encouraged. The other 2 felt that it made sense and had also followed into the dungeon. Meanwhile, the area in front of Gentle Snow's party was completely silent. All of the level 2 players were stunned. They were not just shocked but thunderstruck. A level 2 elite party couldn't even clear the normal mode, yet a party that mainly consisted of level 1 players had actually chosen the Hell mode of the Deathly Forest. Snow, did I see wrong? That's Hell mode, right? Zhao Yueru asked. Gentle Snow nodded her head. Her beautiful eyes kept staring at the flickering skull. Her expression turned extremely serious. That fellow must have abandoned himself to despair, entering hell mode after determining that he couldn't clear the normal mode. We'll see how they come out dead in a moment. Zhao Yueru laughed. We don't have that sort of time. Let's go, we've gathered enough people. Gentle Snow led the way towards the Deathly Forest dungeon. She selected normal mode for the difficulty of the dungeon. If there were no problems with normal mode, they would enter hard mode after. Within the dungeon of the Deathly Forest, there was a dark and gloomy forest. From time to time, there would be a chill wind blowing, causing a shiver down one's body. Aside from Shi Feng himself, every member of his party was tightly packed around the dungeon's entrance. They did not move even an inch for fear of attracting any monsters that would wipe their party. Brother Feng, why do I keep feeling a cold wind blowing by my back? Blackie asked in worry. Blackie, you need to bring out some temperament of an expert, only then will you have the possibility to become one. It is just hell mode. Aside from the monsters here having a little bit intelligence, their battle methods being a little bit complicated, and their attack, defense and HP are a little bit higher, there isn't much else. Alright, there is also a little bit more monsters here. After some thought, Shi Feng felt that he had nothing more to add. Suddenly, every member of the party sent looks of disdain towards Shi Feng. When diving a dungeon, even a small difference in attack and HP could cause a team wipe. As for Shi Feng, he had just simply explained. Moreover, what did he mean by, just a little more intelligence? They had experience before the battles with monsters in God's domain. Regarding those monsters with slightly higher intelligence, even with the same attack and HP, their strength would still be increased by 1 or 2 folds. Alright, stop minding these little matters. I'll be explaining the strategy for this dungeon in a moment, so you guys better listen carefully. If you don't follow through, then your lives will become forfeit. Shi Feng waved his hands, ready to start explaining the strategy to conquer the dungeon. Suddenly, a strong wind blew from the dark and gloomy forest, causing the trees to sway madly. Ow, ow, ow. After the howling wind came a furious roar that resounded throughout the entire deathly forest. Countless birds were scared, flying off into the sky. Blackie and the others were stunned by such an imposing aura. They were just youths around the age of 20. They had never experienced any great hardships, not to mention being tempered through life or death situations. It was their first time facing such a lung-piercing roar. Compared to hearing the traditional roar of a tiger in the forest, this roar was much more shocking to the human heart. This thing is what we should pay attention to, Shi Feng calmly said at this moment. The largest difference between hell mode and hard mode was this roar. Although it did not have a specific name to it, the players in Shi Feng's previous life had dubbed it as Hell's Roar. Chapter 25 Night Ranger. Shi Feng's words confused the other members. Wasn't it just a roar? What was there to pay attention to? When Shi Feng looked at everyone's contemptuous expressions, he couldn't help but gravely say, "Listen well you all. Hell's Roar is not as simple as what you think it is. In a moment, follow my demands while advancing. If anyone makes a mistake, don't blame me for immediately kicking you out of the party." Being lectured by Shi Feng in such a way, the other members all became serious. Nobody wished to leave the party. In a moment, Cola and I will walk in front. Lonely Snow, you walk in the middle and protect the oracle. Blackie, you and the summoner will walk at the back. Remember, you must not break formation regardless of any activities. Without my command, nobody is allowed to be the first to attack. Do you all understand? Shi Feng explained the basics of formations once to the party. The reason Shi Feng had allowed the Guardian Knight, Cola, to walk in front was that he let Cola add all of his free ability points into endurance. His HP now reached 310 points. With this much HP, Cola could resist a little longer, sharing some of Shi Feng's burden. The dungeons in God's domain were unlike the dungeons in other virtual reality games. The degree of freedom within the dungeon was high, and the dungeons themselves were very large. There were even quite a few player parties who had wandered around in the dungeon for hours without even meeting a single boss. Although the Deathly Forest was not as large, it was still possible to become lost within the dark and gloomy forest. If someone were to become lost, Shi Feng only wished to say hee hee. The scary part of the Deathly Forest was that players could become lost once they entered the forest. Eventually, the players would mysteriously die one after another. In Shi Feng's previous life, There were countless players who had entered the forest and died over and over again in such a way without even meeting the shadow of a monster. If they had good luck and met a monster, then the result was a party wipe. Only after many experts of guilds had done it, did everyone finally understand the dreadfulness of the deathly forest. They had acknowledged that it was a terrifying dungeon that was impossible to clear without reaching level 5. When Shadow Guild reached level 5, they had organized hundreds of players to scout out the paths in the deathly forest. They had paid over hundreds of lives to finally have a clear understanding of the deathly forest's map. The entire deathly forest had 36 paths. However, only 3 of them led to the first boss, Willy. These 3 paths were paved with the lives of many players. 2 of these 3 paths were extremely dangerous. Without sufficient strength, death would be the only result. There was only one path that had very few monsters. Under Shifeng's lead, everyone walked into the forest. The moment they entered the forest, everyone discovered that there were too many pathways through the forest. They did not know which one was the right path. However, Shifeng had chosen one without hesitation. Everyone else closely followed him while being cautious of their surroundings. After walking for about 5 minutes, they met their first monster. Suddenly, everybody started to become tense. Don't act on impulse. Listen to my commands. Shifeng loudly shouted. In front of them was only a level 2 elite monster, a night rabbit. However, due to the dungeon strengthening, its attack, defense and HP were all greatly increased. Its HP was a whopping 700 points. Kola, you lure the monster over. Oracle, pay attention to healing. Everyone else, don't start the attack without my command. Shifeng quickly gave out orders. The guardian knight, Kola, gulped down a mouthful of saliva. He carefully walked towards the night rabbit's attack range. Everyone else was nervous to the extreme. Although this was only a level 2 elite, they were currently in the hell mode of a dungeon. However, everyone's nervousness was for naught. The moment the night rabbit with a person's height saw Kola, it immediately dashed over. Kola had very successfully lured the night rabbit over. Moreover, he did not panic when he lured it. He retreated while using his shield to block the night rabbit's attacks. However, even though every attack landed on the shield, the damage was still terrifying. Just a single hit dealt 42 damage. By the time Kola returned to the front of the party, his HP had already dropped by a third. The Oracle, whose name was Drowsy Sloth, had good awareness. He had given out healing the moment Kola entered his casting range. However, every heal could only add 24 HP to Kola. It was completely not enough to stop Kola's HP from falling. Brother Feng, are we still not attacking? Blackie was slightly nervous. At this moment, Kola's remaining HP did not even reach 1/3 of its total. Bringing an Oracle into a dungeon was just a complete mistake. Amongst the healer jobs, Oracles had the weakest healing abilities. However, since Shifeng had chosen so, Blackie could only acknowledge it. Now that their MT was close to death, it would be unacceptable if they still did not attack. Hold on. Shifeng resolutely said. Time passed bit by bit. Kola continuously used his shield to block the claw attacks of the night rabbit, whereas his HP continuously decreased. Kola only had 20% HP remaining, yet Shifeng had yet to give out the command to attack. Just when everyone thought that Shifeng wanted to give up on Kola, a flying arrow pierced through the forest, shooting directly for the party's Oracle, Drowsy Sloth. Lonely Snow had not reacted at all as Drowsy Sloth was struck directly on his chest. A very great damage of -123 points appeared. At this moment, Shifeng shouted, Sloth, use life payment. Use the damage you received to heal Kola. Blackie, hold back the night rabbit to let Kola recover. Lonely, come with me. Everyone else attacks the night rabbit. Oracles were indeed the weakest regarding healing. However, Oracles had high HP, they would not be easily one-shot. Also, Oracles had 2 skills when they first start out. One was Life Prayer while the other was Life Payment. Life Payment could turn the damage received by the user into a heal to be used on other players. In the early periods of the game, healers did not possess many skills or equipment. In regards to such a situation, Oracles had a greater advantage over other healers when entering the Deathly Forest. It was the reason why Shifeng had given up on choosing a priest over an Oracle. After finishing his piece, Shifeng rushed into the forest. Do you think I will let you run away? Shifeng coldly said as he looked at the dark shadow running through the forest. Windblade. Shifeng turned into a phantom, chasing directly forward. The reason why Shifeng did not let anyone attack the Night Rabbit was to use Cola as bait. Shifeng wanted to lure out the Dark Hand hiding behind the scenes. Although the Night Rabbit looked terrifying, an elite party could face up to 2 or 3 of them at once without any problems. However, in Shifeng's previous life, the reason why even a level 5 elite party could be party wiped was that of the Dark Shadow in front of Shifeng. This Dark Shadow used the Night Rabbit as bait, luring players into attacking it. The Dark Shadow, on the other hand, would ambush the healers from behind. As the Night Rabbit was occupying everyone else, there was no way to save the healer. In the end, everyone died. Inside the Deathly Forest, if players did not deal with this fellow, the result would be a party wipe. With the increased movement speed from Wind Blade, Shifeng quickly caught up to the Dark Shadow. Shifeng waved out 3 sword slashes, sealing the Dark Shadow's path of advance. The Black Shadow knew that it could not escape. It immediately turned around, unsheathing a pair of knives to block Shifeng's attack. Dang. Dang. With the Abyssal Blade, Shifeng's strength was frighteningly high. His attacks caused the Dark Shadow to take 3 steps back, and each step it retreated would be followed by the damage that was over -10. In the end, the Dark Shadow revealed its figure under the moonlight. Night Ranger Special Elite. Level 2. HP 1458/1500. Seeing the Night Ranger being repelled, Shifeng immediately used Abyssal Bind without giving him a chance. 9 pitch-black chains appeared to bind the Night Ranger, preventing him from moving for 3 seconds, and his defense reduced by 100%. Thundering Flash. Chop. Damages of -81, -98, -119, -124 appeared. When the 2 skills landed, a frightening amount of damage appeared, taking away a quarter of the Night Ranger's HP. No matter how capable the Night Ranger was, it could not break free from the binding of the 9 chains. He could only silently take a beating for 3 whole seconds. Shifeng was unrestrained as he sent out sword slash after sword slash, piercing through the vital point on the Night Ranger's chest. By the time the Night Ranger broke free from the bindings, his remaining HP did not exceed 700 points. Wretched human. The Night Ranger was enraged. He brandished his twin blades like a gale, engulfing Shifeng. At this moment, Lonely Snow finally caught up. A charge from him had caused the Night Ranger to enter a fainted state, at the same time breaking the Night Ranger's gale-like blade. Shifeng took the chance to slash at the Night Ranger's neck. Lonely Snow also brandished his large axe at the Night Ranger. By the time the Night Ranger had awoken, he only had a remnant of his HP left. The Night Ranger abruptly hacked his twin blades towards Lonely Snow, sending him flying backward and dealing 64 damage. The Night Ranger turned his head to stare at Shifeng, once more brandishing his twin blades and slashing horizontally towards Shifeng's neck. Dang. Shifeng used parry with his sword. Without giving the Night Ranger any chances to retaliate, Shifeng lifted up the Ranger and tossed him back. Then Shifeng followed up with a couple of sword strikes, finishing off the Night Ranger. Shifeng conveniently picked up the 2 items that dropped, then immediately ran towards Cola's location to provide help. Laying by the side, Lonely Snow became dumbfounded after seeing Shifeng's agile skills. His heart filled with shock, Lonely Snow had even forgotten to follow Shifeng to support. There was such a way even to kill monsters? Chapter 26, Miraculous Technique. By the time Shifeng returned to the party, the elite Night Rabbit only had 1/3 of its HP remaining. Everyone had coordinated properly. Cola tanked in the front alone, while the others vigorously dealt damage. However, to control aggro, Blackie did not madly deal damage. Instead, he used Evil Whip to pin down the Night Rabbit, giving Cola some breathing space. Cola's performance was also very good. He steadily tanked the monster and he also had good control over aggro. Cola was not at the level of a novice, but there was still a long road ahead before he became an expert. Cola, don't always try to block with your shield. It isn't a must to block and attack like the other virtual reality games. You can also dodge to avoid an attack. That way you could reduce the stress on the healer. For everyone else, focus your attacks on the target. Don't just randomly attack, aim your attacks at the wild rabbit's claws or other weak points. That way you can reduce a lot of burden on the MT. Shifeng did not directly go up to help Cola, but instead he taught everyone how to battle against monsters. If everyone battled while regarding God's domain as a traditional game, the results would be disastrous. This was because the healing given out was usually far from being able to keep up with the damage received. Some parties would bring an extra healer. However, this would result in the damage being insufficient. The result was still a party wipe. Players only slowly got used to the combat style in God's domain several months after the game opened. The players then would no longer be as cute and simple as they were now. Shi Feng wanted to cultivate everyone to build a foundation for his future workshop. So naturally, he needed to let these people learn the combat styles of God's domain earlier. Everyone thought Shi Feng was also a noob, so they held slight dissatisfaction within their hearts. The expert did not say anything, so why was a noob like him giving out commands? However, Shi Feng's words made sense, so they still consciously did as Shi Feng said. Kola had also started to change his battle style. He was no longer using his shield to block the attacks rigidly. Instead, he retreated a step back when the wild rabbit launched its attack, taking the chance to avoid it. Although Kola still needed to use his shield to block most of the time, it had still greatly reduced the burden on the healer. Such a change allowed killing the night rabbit to become even easier. The few level 1 noobs were also slightly surprised. There was some change in their opinions towards Shi Feng. Shi Feng was not as unbearable as they had imagined him to be. Shi Feng only smiled at this situation. He did not mind their thoughts at all. Shi Feng only felt that Kola was quite good after seeing his performance. Although Kola was a first-rate expert 10 years later, he currently was still far from that point. If it were an expert MT, they would not retreat but choose to dodge the attack without even moving. Such a decision was because if the MT moved, the monster would move as well. This situation would cause trouble for long-range damage dealers, which would result in the loss of a lot of damage. However, such a technique required a bounty of experience in battle and a body with dexterous reactions. Kola still needed a lot of training. The elite night rabbit fell within a moment. It dropped a skill book for Berserker's Whirlwind Slash. It also dropped 3 coppers. Everyone could not help but be amazed by the drop rate of Hell Mode. A skill book dropped just after they killed an elite monster. If they killed over 10 elite monsters, then wouldn't they be able to obtain over 10 skill books? It should be known that skill books were extremely rare, and even a common skill could sell for 1 silver. Shi Feng naturally knew of their thoughts. However, not even Hell Mode had that high of a drop rate. It was only 3 to 4 times that of Hard Mode. Afterward, Shi Feng passed Whirlwind Slash to the stupefied Lonely Snow. Then he passed a level 1 bronze defensive plate armor to Kola. The Night Ranger dropped the armor. With these items, the party's strength slightly increased. Kola's mouth could not close after receiving the defensive plate armor. He hurriedly thanked Shi Feng for it. With this bronze plate armor, not only had Kola's defense increased by 14 points, but his HP had also become 350 points. Aside from Shi Feng and Blackie, everyone else on the scene was filled with envy. Bronze equipment was the identification of an expert. Outside the dungeon, it was impossible to obtain a piece of bronze equipment, even if you begged for it. And this piece of equipment was obtained by Shi Feng alone. Yet, Shi Feng gave it to Kola without hesitation. Everyone's opinion towards Shi Feng changed quite a bit. They felt such a party leader was not bad at all. Shi Feng was unlike the other party leaders who would prioritize themselves when equipment dropped. As for bronze equipment, forget giving it away to a temporary party member, they would definitely keep it for themselves. Afterward, everyone followed Shi Feng as they advanced. Although the dark and gloomy forest was scary, everyone was no longer as nervous as they were before going through a stimulating fight. From time to time, 1 or 2 patrolling elite night rabbits would appear in front of them, and they would also respond to it quickly. When there were 2 night rabbits, Kola would tank one of them, while Shi Feng and Lonely Snow would rush over and kill the other. As for the ranged players, they would prioritize attacking the night rabbit in front of Shi Feng. The night rabbit's 700 HP would be gone quickly under the fierce bombardment. Afterward, the party supported Kola and finished off the other night rabbit. Within moments, 2 night rabbits were no more. With this process, a skill book, Restore, meant for healers also dropped. The skill had a 2-second cast time. When learned by oracles, the skill could instantly restore 37 HP. It was far better than Life Prayer. It did not share the same cooldown as Life Prayer, so the 2 could be used in coordination to negate the damage caused by the elite night rabbits completely. Drowsy Sloth continuously thanked Shi Feng and the other party members for letting him learn the skill book. Restore was an extremely important skill for conquering dungeons. If it were to be sold outside, it could go for at least 2 or 3 silver coins. Don't mind it. Skill books are meant to be used. Let's continue onward. Shi Feng smiled as he answered. Aside from AoE attack skill books, healer-class skill books were the most expensive and rare. However, the Deathly Forest was a dungeon meant to let players build up their foundation in God's domain. In Hell mode, the drop rate for basic healing skills was very high. In Shi Feng's previous life, he had obtained 4 healing skill books just after entering Hell mode of the Deathly Forest once. It was not considered valuable. After more than an hour, Shi Feng's party arrived at a flat grassland. They had finally met the first boss of the dungeon. Willy, Chieftain rank. Level 3. HP 6000. Willy was a ferocious night rabbit. Its height was as tall as 2 people, and sharp steel claws decorated its paws. These claws loved creating a feast of fresh blood, and those caught by it would be ripped to shreds, turned into a river of blood. It was unknown how many players had died a gruesome death under these claws. A short distance away from Willy, there were 7 elite night rabbits on guard. These 7 rabbits were very close to each other. As long as one of them was attacked, the other wild rabbits would rush over as well. There was also a great possibility of attracting the boss. Even if it were Shi Feng, he would not be able to face off against 7 night rabbits, not to mention including a boss. However, if they did not finish off the 7 night rabbits, there was no way for them to attack the boss. Brother Feng, what should we do now? This place has too many night rabbits. The game isn't giving us any chances. Blackie was very anxious. Although the boss was in front of them, the system had dealt them such a hand. This difficulty was just too great. No wonder it was a hell mode dungeon. It was impossible to pass through without absolute strength. The system's setting also angered everyone. Who could fend off 7 elite night rabbits? Even a level 5 guardian knight would not be able to do it. You all wait for me behind that rock. Kola, get ready to receive the monster. Everyone else is not allowed to attack without my command. Shi Feng pointed towards a large rock nearby. Shi Feng naturally knew that there were 7 elite night rabbits here. Everyone abided by Shi Feng's command without question. All the monsters they had killed on the way here relied on Shi Feng's commands for success. They killed quite a lot of night rabbits, and everyone had obtained 1 or 2 pieces of bronze equipment. Blackie even had 5 pieces of bronze equipment. Their party's strength has definitely surpassed the other elite parties. The credit for such an achievement belonged to Shi Feng's commands. As for Shi Feng, he had run to a location that was 40 yards away from the 7 night rabbits. He quietly hid within the bushes, observing the night rabbits' every movement. Everyone understood that Shi Feng was trying to lure monsters. However, the 7 night rabbits were too close to each other. Shi Feng was a swordsman. He did not possess any long-ranged attacking capabilities, so how could he lure monsters? Time passed bit by bit. Everyone was extremely anxious. If Shi Feng accidentally failed, then it would be a party wipe. However, Shi Feng was calm. He moved not an inch as he watched the faraway night rabbits. At this moment, a cool breeze blew past. A dead leaf on the trees was sent flying over. Seeing the dead leaf hovering down towards the night rabbit, Shi Feng picked up a small stone beside him. Gently he tossed the stone over. The direction the stone flew to was towards the night rabbit closest to the boss. We're finished. Everyone understood what kind of outcome this would be. It would definitely be a combination of 1 boss and 7 night rabbits rushing towards them, turning them into blood sacrifices. The moment the stone was about to hit the night rabbit, the dead leaf just happened to have blocked between the stone and the night rabbit. The stone struck the dead leaf, smashing it onto the night rabbit. The night rabbit abruptly turned to look at its surroundings, only discovering a leaf. However, how could a leaf hitting it be so painful? Subsequently, the night rabbit left its unit to observe the surroundings. It looked around aimlessly, not knowing what it was trying to find. It had unknowingly moved over 20 yards away from its unit, and it was still moving further and further away. Too godly. Lonely Snow could not help but exclaim. His eyes had nearly popped out of their sockets. Everyone else had dumbly nodded as well. What kind of accurate judgment and aim was required to hit the dead leaf while hitting the night rabbit, and thereby confusing the night rabbit's hatred, causing it to look for its target blindly? Even calling it as an ultimate skill was not excessive. Was Shi Feng really a noob? He couldn't be some gaming god here to make a fool of them, right? Summoner, the rest is up to you. Shi Feng walked to the rock's location. He looked at the summoner, clapping the person's shoulders as he spoke, smiling. Chapter 27, Shifeng's Improved Party. Undersh. Hearing Shifeng's comment, the summoner, Gluttonous Mouse, suddenly panicked. He did not understand what Shifeng wanted him to do. If he had performed badly and was kicked from the party as a result, he would regret it until he died. It was hard to find a good party during this time, not to mention a party with an expert leading it. It was impossible to join such a party even if you begged. Relax, I won't let you do anything dangerous. You just have to summon out a flame sprite and follow my instructions. You don't have to do anything else, Shifeng said with a smile, trying to ease the nerves of Gluttonous Mouse a little. Currently, summoners were not strong, mainly due to the incapability of their skills. A summoner's method of attack mainly relied on their summoned creatures, whereas their normal attack was the low-damage magic bullet. However, a summoner with awesome skills could become a one-man army. It was especially true for summoners who could call out powerful elemental creatures. They could kill elite monsters as if they were just playing around. Party leader, rest assured, I'll definitely do it. Gluttonous Mouse loudly said, his tone filled with respect. He was like a student who had met his teacher. Everyone else, distance yourselves from that rock, 20 yards away from it would be the best. Pay attention not to lure the other monsters. Feng turned around and said to the other party members. Yes, party leader. The other party members loudly replied. Their current attitudes were completely different from before. Feng was slightly shocked by everyone's performance. Why was each and every one of them so obedient all of a sudden? However, Feng did not know that the single stone he threw just now had completely shocked every one of them. They were filled with admiration towards Feng's stone-throwing technique. Such skill and accuracy were definitely not something a normal person could do. Professional players might not even be able to do so. Worshipping the strong was a common sight within a game. These level 1 noobs were no exception. At this moment, the gaze everyone used to look at Feng was completely different. Before, they merely felt that Feng was a good commander. Now, however, Feng was a strong person they worshipped. They had faintly grown a sense of reverence for Feng. Standing to the side, Blackie clapped Lonely Snow's shoulders, proudly saying, "How is it? Following Brother Feng isn't bad, right?" Lonely Snow silently nodded his head, rejoicing for the decision he made to follow after Feng. Feng was definitely a beta tester expert. Without sufficient experience and practice, such techniques were impossible to accomplish. Only a beta tester could possibly do it. Haha. What do you plan to do in the future? Blackie suddenly asked. He started to hatch ideas towards Lonely Snow. Blackie wanted to poach Lonely Snow for their workshop, even though the workshop was still non-existent. There was a 100% chance for Cola to join them, but Lonely Snow still did not have any plans to move in such a direction. The future? Lonely Snow had never considered it before. He was but an average player. He did not have any big ambitions, only wanting to earn some cash from playing games. He said honestly, I have never considered it before. I see that your techniques are quite good. Why don't you join us for now? Blackie nonchalantly asked. Really? Lonely Snow had anxiety about his future after Blackie's question. He did not know where he wanted to go. If he could party with an expert, then it could not get any better. Of course. However, we still need to look at your future performance. We don't just simply accept people, Blackie proudly said, pretending to be an expert. Thank you, Brother Black. Lonely Snow happily responded. He never imagined his luck would be so great as to be noticed by an expert. Seeing Lonely Snow agree, Blackie released a sigh of relief. Currently, Blackie was just a fox pretending to be a tiger. He couldn't help out Feng much in God's domain, but he could still help out in regards to administration. There wasn't even a shadow of their workshop as of this moment. There was also the debt of 16,000 credits. The workshop's members consisted of only Feng and himself. It was definitely the poorest workshop in history. If this was found out by the others, they would definitely turn around and leave. Now, Blackie could only fake being an expert to lure people to join their workshop. At this moment, Feng was currently explaining the contents of the operation to the summoner. The operation was to let Gluttonous Mouse lure the remaining 6 night rabbits by controlling his flame sprite. Because the night rabbit that was closest to the boss was no more, luring the other night rabbits would not attract the boss. They could lure the monsters with ease. The flame sprite was extremely weak. Its HP was only a pitiful 15 points, and it would die in a single hit. However, its movement speed was extremely quick. Adding to its very small size, trying to hit it would be a difficult task. start the operation. Mouse, remember to maintain a distance of 4 yards or above while circling around the rock, Shifeng reminded once more. Gluttonous Mouse nodded his head. Carefully he controlled the flame sprite to lure the 6 night rabbits. When the sprite entered the 35-yard distance, the nearest elite night rabbit discovered the flame sprite. Suddenly, it turned its body around and rushed towards the flame sprite. The other night rabbits also came rushing along. Seeing the night rabbits taking the bait, Gluttonous Mouse immediately controlled the flame sprite and ran. The 6 night rabbits were in hot pursuit, but their speed could no match for the flame sprite. In a moment the flame sprite had arrived beneath the large rock. It had lured the 6 night rabbits over and started circling around the large rock. On the other side, Cola had already aggroed the night rabbit that had left its unit. Cola interchanged between blocking and using his new skill, Divine Strike. With the effects of 2 pieces of bronze equipment, a single hit from Divine Strike had caused 26 damage. It was a lot higher compared to the 11 or 12 damage caused by a normal strike. Also, Divine Strike had the added effect of increasing hatred. It became a lot easier to hold aggro. The night rabbit was killed off within a short moment. It dropped 5 coppers. After this night rabbit was handled, only the 6 night rabbits that kept on circling around the large rock remained. I'll lure the night rabbits. Cola, pay attention to pull the monster. Shifeng picked up another small stone, throwing it at the night rabbit that ran at the rear. The night rabbit rubbed its cranium after being struck on it. The rabbit turned around, discovering Shifeng that had thrown the stone. The night rabbit suddenly became enraged. It madly hopped towards Shifeng with its powerful legs. As for the other night rabbits, they were still excitedly chasing after the flame sprite, failing to notice the disappearance of one of their companions. Receive it. Seeing the night rabbit was only 20 yards away from the party, Shifeng commanded. Cola rushed ahead, sending a divine strike towards the night rabbit's head. The night rabbit's target immediately changed, extending its claws towards Cola's cranium. However, Cola had reacted quickly by dodging his body sideways. After avoiding the attack, Cola continued by using punishment. The skill had once more strengthened the night rabbit's hatred to Cola. Everyone focus fire. Shifeng inwardly applauded after seeing Cola's performance. He had never imagined Cola's ability to learn would be this great. He had already found out about the night rabbit's attack patterns after going through slightly more than 10 battles. No wonder he was the core MT of a first-rate guild 10 years later. His potential was limitless. The night rabbit in front of Cola had fallen within 20 seconds. It had even dropped a skill book for swordsman Double Chop. Shifeng immediately learned it without reservations. Double Chop, action type. Requires, sword. Level 1. Proficiency 0/300. Rapidly deals damage twice. Every slash of the sword deals 120% plus 15 damage, also increasing bleeding effect by 20%. Duration of 10 seconds. Stacks up to a maximum of 5 times. Cooldown 8 seconds. This skill book had greatly increased Shifeng's explosive power. As for the problem of getting used to the skill, it was non-existent for Shifeng. After playing for 10 years as a swordsman, the skills belonging to the job were deeply ingrained into Shifeng's bones. As long as Shifeng got a hold of these skills, he would be able to utilize them to their greatest potential. Shifeng had also lured the remaining 5 night rabbits over, one after another. The party had killed the rabbits one by one, and following the death of the final night rabbit, a golden glow appeared around Shifeng's body. He had risen to level 2. At the same time, the 5 night rabbits had contributed to the party a piece of bronze plate armor for guardian knights. The equipment increased Cola's HP to 390 points and his defense to 56. It had also increased Cola's ability to resist against the night rabbit chieftain Willy. Chapter 28, The Horror of Hell Mode. With the elites that were on guard all dead, only the boss, Willy, remained on the open field. At this moment, Willy was laying on the ground, sleeping. It would scratch its back from time to time, completely unaware of its missing henchmen. Everyone recover for now. I'll explain the method to raid Willy in a moment. Shifeng wanted everyone to ease up first. It would not be easy to face off against Willy. The fight would require a high degree of concentration because a single mistake would cause everyone to be buried together. Hearing Shifeng's command, everyone sat down to recuperate. They ate and drank to recover to their best state. Shifeng's finger waved and shook as he called up his attribute panel. He had recently reached level 2. Because of the Abyssal Blade, the free attribute points he obtained exceeded other players by 2 points. The choices he could make with his points were slightly more than the average player. In the initial period, it was sufficient for the agility of a swordsman to reach 20 points. However, Shifeng increased his to 30 points. There would be a fixed increase in the body's flexibility when agility reached 30 points. Subsequently, Shifeng added the remaining points into strength, making it easier for him to contend with the boss. Shifeng had on him 3 pieces of bronze equipment, a mysterious iron ring and a magic weapon. Shifeng attributes had basically reached his own requirements. Character: Yifeng Human. Affiliated Kingdom: Star Moon. Title: Might of 1000. Job: Swordsman. Level: 2. HP: 520/520. Attack Power: 88. Defense Power: 39. Attack Speed: 15. Movement Speed: 13. Attributes: Strength 32, Agility 30, Endurance 24, Intelligence 13, Vitality 13. With such attributes, Shifeng had more confidence dealing with Willy. Seeing everyone recovered, Shifeng started explaining, Willy has 2 skills. One of them is Killing Feast. When used, Willy will ignore hatred and randomly attack the nearest players. Blackie and Lonely, you two have to pay attention to your positioning. The other skill is Death Claws. Cola, you have to distance yourself from the boss before this skill is used. Lonely Snow, pay attention to interrupt the boss. I'll remind you when the time comes. Another point to take note of, Willy is very smart, so don't keep on using the same attack pattern. Alright, that's it. If we're ready, then start the battle, Cola. Brother Feng, is there nothing else we have to pay attention to? Blackie walked up to Shifeng's side, whispering. This place was the hell mode of the Deathly Forest. Not everyone was an expert as well. However, Shifeng's explanation was so simple that it made them feel conquering this boss was very easy. However, there were so many elite parties which had died inside normal mode, so how could hell mode be so simple? Party leader, are there no details we need to pay attention to? Everyone was very worried. They all held anticipation in their gazes as they looked toward Shifeng, hoping that he would speak more about the finer details. They were noobs, so there were a lot of things they did not understand. In regards to an expert like Shifeng, the things he felt were common knowledge were definitely not common to noobs like them. Elites could not be compared to a boss. The other elite parties must have definitely died at the hands of the boss. Although their equipment was better than in elite parties, they were still level 1 noobs. They clearly knew their own worth. You guys worry too much. Relax. When the time comes, I'll tell you what you should do and when you should do it, so don't worry about it. Cola, start the fight and remember to dodge more often. A single healer will not be able to match up to the boss damage, Shifeng smiled. He felt his party members were quite interesting. They were much more serious about the details than he had thought. In his previous life, Shifeng had entered Hell Mode dungeons countless times as the captain of Shadow. There was also no lack of 100-men dungeons amongst those times. So, how could he not know how to guide a few noobs to beat a small boss? Cola had no choice but to go at it hard. Willy abruptly leaped up the moment Cola entered its detection range. Its mouth salivated when it saw Cola, and its 2 pairs of steel claws intertwined to produce sparks. Cola had clearly stimulated Willy's heart of massacre. It lifted its steel claws and hastily dashed towards Cola. Start casting heals. All damage dealers prepare to attack Willy's limbs. Shifeng commanded when he saw Willy's menacing appearance. Just when Shifeng finished speaking, Willy had arrived before of Cola. Before Cola could react, its sharp claws had fallen from the sky, slashing at Cola's neck. Cola instinctively used his shield to block the steel claws, forming 3 brilliant streaks of sparks. There were also 3 claw marks left on the shield. Due to the immense rushing force, Cola was forced to retreat 5 or 6 steps as he stabilized his body. Above his head, a damage of -103 appeared. Before Cola could even attack, Willy once again waved out its steel. This time, Cola was sent flying with his shield, and a damage of -105 points appeared. Only at this moment did the heal land on Cola, recovering 43 HP for him. It was a truly insignificant amount when compared to the damage Cola received. Everyone was shocked. The movement speed and damage of the boss was too horrifying. If Cola did not possess 2 pieces of bronze equipment, or if he did not block the attacks with his shield, he would have simply died from these 2 strikes. Lonely Snow used charge on Willy. Blackie used evil whip. Shifeng had long since expected such a situation. He quickly instructed Blackie to use a binding skill. Lonely Snow reacted by using a charge to block Willy's next attack and saved Cola's life. However, Lonely Snow's attack had only caused -11 damage to Willy. He became dumbfounded by it. He had added most of his attribute points into strength, and he even had 2 pieces of bronze equipment on him. Yet he had dealt such a small amount of damage. It should be known that the boss in front of him had 6,000 HP. Blackie also finished chanting from the side, sending out his evil whip. 5 streaks of pitch-black thorns suddenly constricted Willy's legs. Shifeng took the chance to circle around to Willy's rear. With the abyssal blade in hand, he used double chop on Willy's neck, causing -66 and -67 damage. His attack also caused a bleeding effect, causing Willy to lose 8 HP every second, lasting for 10 seconds. The high damage immediately caused Willy to switch its hatred to Shifeng. However, Shifeng did not give it any chance. With his 30 agility, Shifeng easily dodged away from the steel claws, appearing 5 yards away from Willy. Ow! 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 Willy furiously bellowed as it rushed at Shifeng. Ranged players start attacking. Cola, come over and hold Willy after you're done recovering. Shifeng systematically retreated while he dodged Willy's claws. However, the others watching Shifeng were shocked to their souls. This was because Willy's claws would graze by Shifeng's cranium every time it attacked, blowing his hair into a dance. Although everyone was shocked, they never stopped attacking. Magic attacks were sent out one after another, whereas Lonely Snow used Whirlwind Slash at Willy's rear. However, not one of those damages had exceeded -20 points. Willy's HP slowly decreased. When it was occasionally struck by Shifeng, its HP would drop by a segment. Willy's HP had fallen to 90% within a moment. Willy became enraged as it started a mad dance with its claws. It used Death Claws, greatly increasing its attack speed. Shifeng was nearly hit by it. Fortunately, however, he had used the Abyssal Blade to block the attack, only receiving -130 damage from it. At this moment, the Cola rushed up with his full HP. He used a Divine Strike on Willy's head, followed by a punishment. Willy's hatred only switched to Cola after a series of attacks. The switching of hatred had also interrupted Willy's Death Claws, returning Willy to its normal state. Seeing Willy change targets, Shifeng waved out a thundering flash. 3 streaks of thunder passed through Willy's body, dealing -92, -116, -137 damage. At the same time, giving Willy a damage amplification effect, it allowed others to deal 20% more damage to it. The fight with Willy became much easier. Blackie was sending out dark arrows without stopping, each dealing over -50 damage. Whereas the others only managed to deal over -20 damage to Willy. Being given a painful beating, Willy was just about to turn around and attack Shifeng when Cola used both Divine Strike and Punishment once more. Willy's hatred was quickly pulled back to Cola. When Willy turned back to Cola, Shifeng used a chop on it. In such a way, Shifeng and Cola took turns aggroing Willy, causing it unable to attack any players. Willy's HP continuously dropped until it was 30%. Willy entered a berserk state, its body increasing by several sizes. Melee players stay away from the boss. Blackie use Evil Whip. Healer heal me. Shifeng loudly shouted. In its current state, Willy was definitely going to use its big move, Killing Feast. Lonely Snow and Cola immediately distanced themselves from the boss after hearing Shifeng's command, letting Shifeng tank the boss by himself. When the 2 of them had run out of the 10-yard range, Willy disappeared. No one understood what happened. When Willy reappeared, it had already arrived at Shifeng's back, and its steel claws abruptly descended. Shifeng had long since been ready for this. He used his sword to block the incoming claws. However, just after blocking this attack, Willy once again disappeared and again appeared behind Shifeng. Within 2 short seconds, Willy had attacked Shifeng's back 7 times. Fortunately, Shifeng's agility had reached 30 points. It was barely enough to match up to Willy's speed. However, every attack Shifeng blocked would still take away a significant amount of HP from him. The heals he received also continuously recovered his HP. -96, -97, +46, -96, -97, +48, +32, -96, -97 plus 46. If Shifeng did not possess 520 HP and blocked every claw that came at him, Shifeng would have died from Willie's killing feast with 100% certainty. At this moment, Shifeng's remaining HP did not reach 100 points. Get rid of it. Shifeng loudly shouted. After using his big move, Willie would enter a weakened state. It was the perfect chance to kill it. Everyone continuously greeted Willie with their attacks, finally shaving off Willie's remaining 30% HP. It dropped 4 items. Just as everyone was about to let loose their breaths, Shifeng took a look at everyone's current status. The healer, Drowsy Sloth's remaining MP did not reach 20%, and the other mage's MP did not reach 10%. Shifeng hurriedly said, "Everyone sit down and recover immediately." Everyone was confused. Didn't the boss just die? Why must they be in such a hurry? However, everyone still listened to Shifeng's command to sit down and recover. Before they had even sat down and recuperated with food and drinks for 5 seconds, a violent roar entered everyone's ears. The roar had shaken the entire deathly forest, and following it, a black shadow leaped out from within the forest. The black shadow was a gigantic werewolf. The werewolf looked at Willie's corpse, then looked toward Shifeng and the others. Its pitch-black eyes suddenly turned crimson red. Just when it wanted to release a roar, Shifeng dashed towards it with Wind Blade. Immediately Shifeng used Abyssal Bind. 9 chains appeared and bound the werewolf and its mouth, preventing it from making a sound. At this moment, everyone finally saw the werewolf's statistics. It had a whopping 2 bars of HP. Werewolf felt Lord rank. Level 3. HP 12,000/12,000. Crap, why is there a Lord boss? Blackie cursed. They had barely rested just after killing a boss, and now there was a Lord in front of them. Lords were a rank higher than chieftains. The game was literally trying to kill them. Everyone remember, absolutely do not let Werewolf felt let out another roar. Shifeng continuously reminded everyone. However, the others were clearly frightened. Not because of Werewolf felt's body and HP, but because of that pair of horrifying crimson eyes. They gave off an intimidating feeling to everyone that made it hard to move. Chapter 29, Extraordinary State. In front of the dungeon of the Deathly Forest, the numbers of level 2 players gathering were increasing. There was also an endless stream of players diving down into the dungeon. Because there were a lot of level 2 players, there was quite an amount of players who had set up stalls peddling to the side. Good quality level 0 common equipment. Don't miss it when you pass by. You can only go down the dungeon with good equipment. Equipment is limited, hurry over and buy. Small HP potions instantly heals 90 HP once. A must-have tool for a battle that is worthy of you. God's domain had been open for over 10 hours now. The players here were all level 2 players. After over 10 hours of battling, they had gathered quite a few items. Many level 2 players had intended to sell the items which they had no use for, switching them for something they could use. Such a situation had caused business to flourish at the Deathly Forest. Although the number of players in front of the Deathly Forest continued to increase, the number of parties entering the dungeon kept on decreasing. Only those parties that were unaware would enter the Deathly Forest. However, after those players had been properly nurtured by the Deathly Forest, they suddenly discovered their previous beliefs to be very naive. Hence, they obediently stood in front of the dungeon. They talked about life with other parties while watching new parties enter the dungeon with a smile. They had also investigated reports of the Deathly Forest together with the experienced parties, mutually improving their strategies to conquer the dungeon. Following wave after wave of players entering and dying out of the dungeon, the Deathly Forest had finally become the sore point of every player in Red Leaf Town. Every player who entered the Deathly Forest only had one impression of the dungeon. It was extremely horrifying. Currently, in the resurrection graveyard of the Deathly Forest, 6 streaks of white light flashed into existence. Following which 6 figures revealed themselves from within. There is just no way to clear this dungeon. So I think we would be better off grinding monsters or doing quests. Just after reviving, Zhao Yueru stamped her delicate feet, her chest heaving up and down. The cuteness of her enraged, yet delicate appearance instantly attracted the attention of a crowd of male players. Gentle Snow shook her head, saying in contemplation, "Our gains inside the Deathly Forest are relatively good, so we can't just easily give up. But the forest inside the Deathly Forest is too large. Adding in the great number of small paths, we would easily become lost without a map. However, I believe that amongst the numerous pathways, there must be a few that lead to the boss location. The other paths are only there as a trap to confuse us. That is why we are always being ambushed by the night rabbits. The more we fight, the more night rabbits will come. For now, let's investigate for some information and see if we can complete a map for the Deathly Forest. Everyone felt that Gentle Snow's speculation made sense, especially about the part where they attacked the night rabbits. Occasionally, a chilling arrow aimed at the cleric, Xiao Yuer, would appear from within the forest. If it wasn't for Xiao Yuer's skill at dodging, they would have long since party wiped. Also, the deeper they went into the forest, the more numerous the night rabbits became. In the end, the night rabbits became too overwhelming in numbers. They were unable to shoulder all of the rabbits, which resulted in their return through death. If they could find the correct path, they might have already cleared the dungeon by now. Zhao Yueru could only nod her head in agreement. The party's leader was, in fact, Gentle Snow, and Gentle Snow's speculations were always very accurate. Zhao Yueru could not help but believe in her. Going with the suggestion, Gentle Snow and Zhao Yueru nonchalantly shouted a few times, stating that they wanted to trade information about the Deathly Forest. It couldn't be denied, the striking effect created by two great beauties calling out. Suddenly, the atmosphere in the Deathly Forest started to boil as players rushed over, one after another. Every one of them wanted to be the first in position. Too many of the male players, this was a great chance for them to talk to a goddess. Who knew, if the goddess had looked upon them, they might be able to live a blessed life in the future. Meanwhile, inside the hell mode of the Deathly Forest, the sky within the dungeon had already darkened. Thousands of birds soared to the skies, leaving the forest in a deadly silence. Werewolf felt was not any common monster. It was a very famous werewolf. In the past, it massacred countless in Red Leaf Town, nearly turning Red Leaf Town into a town of death. In a fit of rage, the Starmoon Kingdom had sent out its army to surround Felt. In the end, after being heavily wounded by the great swordmaster Hilton, Felt had escaped into the Deathly Forest to treat its wounds. It was the reason why the dungeon of the Deathly Forest existed. In Hell mode, Felt had 3 absolute skills. The first one was Death Stare. Enemies who Felt stared at would have their attack speed and movement speed greatly reduced. If one had a weak willpower, they might not even be able to move. Presently, only Shifeng had 30 points in agility. After he had activated the 3 hidden basic skills he possessed, he gained a certain amount of resistance towards the Death Stare. As for the other people, their reactions would become very sluggish. That was why Shifeng remained the one to keep Werewolf Felt in check, whereas Drowsy Sloth continuously healed Shifeng. However, Drowsy Sloth's casting speed had slowed by half. As for the melee players, they were no help whatsoever. However, it was not because they did not want to help, but it was because they had no way of helping at all. Werewolf Felt's attack speed was just too fast. It was to the degree where they couldn't react to its attacks. It was as if they were facing off against an expert that came straight out from a Wuxia novel. Normal people had no chance to interfere whatsoever. They would only be creating more trouble if they had rushed up to the battle. So, it was still better to just watch from the side. Currently, only the ranged mages dealt damage. However, the damage caused was just too low. Even Blackie's dark arrows were only dealing -24 damage each. Lonely interrupt the roar. Seeing Felt abruptly inhaling, Shifeng immediately shouted. Lonely Snow had long since prepared for this moment. Immediately he went forward and used charge, causing Felt to enter a 1-second fainted state. Then he quickly retreated. Shifeng took the chance to use Thundering Flash, Double Chop and Chop. One attack after another landed on Felt's chest. Before Felt could even regain its breath, it had spat out a mouthful of blood. Shifeng had caused a terrifying -500 damage to it. Within an instant, Felt's HP had fallen to 78%. Everyone watching became dumbfounded. Regarding Shifeng's powerful actions, they only had one word to say: amazing. They were even more impressed by Shifeng's eyesight. He had actually discovered such a weakness on Felt's body. Now, everyone was further reassured that Shifeng was not as simple as he seemed. However, Shifeng did not display any great excitement. Although they had interrupted Hell's Roar and avoided a party wipe, this would create a reverse effect. After spitting out a mouthful of blood, Werewolf Felt's condition became much more pleasant. It spun its head around and immediately slashed its sharp claws at Shifeng. The slashing speed of Felt's claws was even a notch quicker than before, filling the sky with the afterimages of its claws. However, Shifeng was not a weakling either. Strength, agility, and endurance. Shifeng activated the hidden basic skills of all three of these attributes. With these skills activated, it meant that Shifeng's constitution was no longer that of an average player, but an extraordinary one. Shifeng's greatest asset in coming into the Deathly Forest was this extraordinary state which he could activate at any given moment. With it he could do things that normal players couldn't. Under a sky filled with after images of claws, Shifeng could still remain safe and sound. It was as if Shifeng was dancing under the after images. Occasionally Shifeng used his sword to fend off the attacks which he could not avoid. This was the power of being under an extraordinary condition. His five senses became extremely sensitive, and his brain's processing abilities became exceptionally focused. Shifeng could utilize his body to its greatest potential. If it was an average player, however, they would be unable to carry out such feats. It was both mentally and physically taxing to the extraordinary condition. If Shifeng had not become accustomed to it before, he would only be able to maintain such a state for a few seconds. Claws and sword intertwined, creating countless dazzling sparks. Both sides had their HP continuously falling. Fortunately, Shifeng was able to survive the exchange with Drowsy Sloth's timely heals. Afterward, under Shifeng's command, Lonely Snow would occasionally interrupt the Hell's Roar, while Cola would hold back Felt whenever Shifeng was in danger, and Blackie would use Evil Whip to contain Felt's movements. In such a way, Werewolf Felt's HP continuously decreased, 70%, 60%, 30%. Everyone stand in a straight line facing the boss. Quickly. Shifeng hurriedly shouted when he saw Werewolf Felt's HP nearing 30%. Werewolf Felt would become the most frightening when its HP decreased to 30%. During this time, it was impossible to interrupt the Hell's Roar. They could only take it head-on. No one had any hesitation. They knew that the boss was about to go berserk. They immediately took action, forming a straight line against Werewolf Felt, while also maintaining a 30-yard distance away from it. The moment Werewolf Felt's HP reached 30%, its fur started changing colors. Within a moment, its fur had become snow white, and 2 streams of blood leaked from its eyes. Its chest also started to quickly expand as if it was a swelled-up frog. Shifeng immediately activated Gravity Liberation, quickly arriving in front of everyone else. "Cola, use Protection Blessing on me," Shifeng loudly shouted. Protection Blessing was able to reduce the damage taken by a party member by 50% for a duration of 6 seconds. It was a life-saving skill with a 5-minute cooldown, and right now was the perfect moment to use it. Protection Blessing of Guardian Knights and Shield Wall of Shield Warriors. These 2 skills had a high drop rate inside the Hell mode of the Deathly Forest. Before, the reason why Shifeng had wasted time on clearing out some unnecessary night rabbits was all to obtain this skill, Protection Blessing. Chapter 30 Crimson Blade. Cola had long since been ready for this moment. The instant Shifeng let out the command, his mouth began chanting divine texts. Streaks of golden divine texts rushed at Shifeng. Protection Blessing. Suddenly Shifeng was surrounded by countless golden divine texts, giving off a dazzling golden glow. At the same time, Drowsy Sloth at the rear of the line, continuously cast Recover and Life Prayer, pulling Shifeng's HP back up to full and returning him to his best condition. Prepare for a battering attack. Absolutely do not leave from my back. Seeing Werewolf Felt's line of sight shifting towards them, Shifeng held the abyssal blade across his chest as he commanded. Hearing Shifeng's words, everyone started to tense up. Their hearts were not courageous to begin with. Now their hearts started to madly beat. They were being covered in a cold sweat even before Werewolf Felt used its skill. Suddenly Werewolf Felt moved. Its expanded chest started moving upwards, moving past its throat and to its mouth. Oh! Within an instant, everyone aside from Shifeng felt their hearts stop beating. It was as if the world had turned gray and silent. The soaring birds in the sky had also turned motionless. Everyone could clearly see the multitude of gray-colored waves being emitted from Werewolf Felt's body. Streak after streak, it continuously expanded. The dark gray ripples quickly arrived in front of everyone. However, they could not move even a muscle. It was not because they did not wish to move, but because their bodies could not keep up with the speed of their thoughts. Everyone could feel that time was moving by at an exceptionally slow pace. However, everyone understood that although the movement of time appeared slow, in reality, it was moving at the pinnacle of speed. Just like absolute experts crossing swords, the moment the exchange happened, time would move exceptionally slowly. At this moment only Shi Feng slightly moved. Phantom kill. The instant the dark gray ripples arrived in front of Shi Feng, his doppelganger had blocked in front of him. At the same time the doppelganger used parry. Subsequently the gray ripples made contact with the doppelganger. However, they were blocked by the doppelganger's parry, whereas the doppelganger himself retreated a step back. He only stabilized his body after colliding with Shi Feng. Just after the doppelganger stabilized himself, another wave of ripples came smashing. The ripples passed through the doppelganger's body this time, causing his HP to instantly decrease by 300 points. Behind him, Shi Feng had also received -30 damage, while the others behind Shi Feng received -20 damage. However, the ripples did not stop with just one wave. When the third wave of ripples passed through the doppelganger, his body had instantly disintegrated. A damage of -100 points also appeared above Shi Feng's head. Subsequently, wave after wave of dark gray ripples followed. -100, -100, -100, -100. Shi Feng's HP fell time and time again until only 90 points remained. When the final wave of ripples was about to get rid of Shi Feng, he used parry. Shi Feng retreated a big step backward. However, he did not receive any damage. The people behind him were also unharmed. However, their HP after going through several waves of attacks did not exceed 50%. At this moment, Drowsy Sloth's recover had only landed on Shi Feng's body, pulling Shi Feng's HP back to 140. Following which he used life payment, recovering 130 HP for Shi Feng. Within a moment, Shi Feng's HP had returned to over 50%. This roar really is powerful. I even thought we were finished. Blackie wiped off the cold sweat from his forehead. If Shi Feng had not blocked in front of them, they would all be goners by now. When he thought back to how Shi Feng nearly died, Blackie's heart started beating rapidly, reaching 180 beats per minute. If Shi Feng died, then they would die as well. There was nobody else in the party who could pin down Werewolf Felt for a long period of time. At this moment, everyone looked at Shi Feng as if they were looking at a monster. Never would they have imagined that Shi Feng would ingeniously use his doppelganger to block 2 of those onslaughts. He had also used parry on the final attack. The way Shi Feng had calculated both damage and HP was absolutely brilliant. Such a technique definitely belonged to the realm of gods. Stop daydreaming, all of you. Quickly attack the boss. It's in a weakened state right now. Shi Feng only shrugged his shoulders at his party's reaction. Such a technique could be done by many experts in a few more years. However, Shi Feng had yet to relax. The thing he had to pay attention to the most right now was the boss. Only he knew how hard it was to deal with Werewolf Felt. Wind Blade. With gravity liberation activated, Shi Feng instantly arrived in front of Felt. He tightly gripped the abyssal blade, continuously sending attacks towards Felt's chest. Thundering Flash. Double Chop. Chop. Damage that exceeded -100 appeared above Werewolf Felt's head, one after another. The other party members were also able to deal damage of over -20 with each attack. Very quickly they had reduced Werewolf Felt's HP down to 15%. When they saw that Felt was about to die, everyone revealed smiles of excitement. Don't be careless. Blackie, use your evil whip. Lonely Snow, prepare to interrupt with charge. Shi Feng commanded as he dodged Werewolf Felt's attack. Being told what to do in such a way, everyone's hearts suddenly constricted. A death stare and a hell's roar was already unimaginably terrifying. If it was any other party here, they would have long since revived back at the graveyard. Could Werewolf Felt actually have another powerful skill? How horrifying was this hell mode? Shi Feng constantly paid attention to Werewolf Felt's HP. Just when Felt's HP fell down to 10%, its third big move finally came. Death Berserk. This move would increase Werewolf Felt's attack speed by 100%, its movement speed by 40%, and its attack power by 100% until it died. It was precisely this move that had caused countless elite parties to curse out in madness. After activating Death Berserk, Werewolf Felt's fur started turning red. In a moment, it had become blood red in color. Adding in its crimson red eyes and sharp fangs, Felt looked remarkably like a blood fiend. Its terrifying appearance had caused everyone to inadvertently retreat a step backward. They could clearly feel the air of danger given off by Felt. Shi Feng used another double chop, stacking the bleeding effect to 5 layers. Afterward he spun around and ran. After activating Death Berserk, there was no one under level 5 who was able to block Felt. That included Shi Feng even if he had a magic weapon. The only method was to kite it and slowly grinding Felt to death. The moment Shi Feng had escaped the 10-yard distance, Felt's thick thighs suddenly doubled in size. One of its legs abruptly stomped the ground, sending it flying like an arrow, rushing towards Shi Feng. Shi Feng was about to arrive at the location of the large rock, but behind him, Felt's speed was just too fast. He definitely could not make it. Shi Feng abruptly made a 90-degree sharp turn. Hong. Without making any turns, Werewolf Felt smashed straight into the large rock blocking its path, turning it into rubble. Fragmented rocks the size of a person's head were sent flying more than 10 yards away. Seeing such horrifying strength, even a fierce man such as Kola had his heart trembling. If he were struck by those claws, then he would definitely become meat paste. At this moment, Shi Feng had already distanced himself over 20 yards from Felt. Meanwhile, the attacks from the mages never stopped. They continuously ground away Felt's HP. Shi Feng's plan to kite Felt was a success. Every time Werewolf Felt was about to catch up, Lonely Snow would charge at it. He then followed it up with a bone crusher, greatly reducing Felt's speed. Afterward he pulled away from Felt once more. When Lonely Snow's skills were on cooldown, Blackie would use Evil Whip to constrict Felt once more. The skills of the two of them had a quick cooldown. With Shi Feng's occasional abyssal bind, they had formed a perfect cycle to toy with Werewolf Felt without pause. 7%, 6%, 5%, 3%. Finally, when Felt only had 1% HP remaining, Shi Feng abruptly turned around. Wind Blade. Thundering Flash. Chop. Double Chop. Shi Feng's single sword slashed at Werewolf Felt's chest, taking away its final 1% HP. System. Your party is the first to clear a Hell Mode dungeon. Rewards increased by 100%. Loot increased by 100%. System. Cleared Hell Mode of Deathly Forest. Rewarding 8,000 EXP. At this moment, Werewolf Felt exploded, dropping out over 10 items. And amongst them, there was one that made Shi Feng's eyes shine. Crimson Blade. It was a sword that had the color of fresh blood. It gave off a dull red glow, and there was also faint drops of red liquid dripping off the edges of the blade. The entire sword revealed a dense killing aura. Shi Feng never imagined that the item with an abysmal drop rate would actually appear in front of him. Chapter 31, Hell's Book. Shi Feng walked over without hesitation. He quickly picked up the one-handed sword filled with killing intent. The Crimson Blade was one of the rarest drops within the Hell Mode of the Deathly Forest. It was also the best sword for a swordsman below level 6. Crimson Blade, Secret Silver Rank, One-Handed Sword. Level 3. Equipment Requirement, Strength 12. Attack Power plus 21. Strength plus 5, Agility plus 6, Endurance plus 3. Durability 30/30. Its attack power alone could rival a level 5 two-handed bronze axe. With the 6 extra points in agility, it could increase the attack speed of a swordsman by quite a lot. The Crimson Blade was definitely a precious weapon for swordsmen. Unfortunately, Shi Feng could not equip it yet. His experience was currently at 69% of level 2. There was still quite an amount before he could reach level 3. Moreover, he wouldn't be able to equip it even if he had reached level 3. This was because swordsmen would only activate the dual-wielding talent after they reached level 5. At that time, Shi Feng would be able to wield 2 one-handed swords. By the time Shi Feng was level 5, he would be able to wield the Abyssal Blade on his main arm, and the Crimson Blade on his subarm. His attack power would be invincible amongst level 5 players. Shi Feng felt great just thinking about such a future. Brother Feng, hurry up and pick up the equipment. I'm dying of anxiety here. Blackie urged. That's right, party leader. You can't just enjoy it by yourself. At least let us have a look at what equipment dropped. The loot on the ground had nearly blinded everyone's eyes. The anxiety burning in their hearts had even caused them to forget their joy of reaching level 2. They all wished to take a look at the drops of the 2 Hell Mode bosses. As for rushing over to snatch the loot, there was nobody present who would do such a thing. Even if the items on the ground were valuable, they still wouldn't do it. If they had done such a thing, although they could feel great for the moment, they would instead regret their actions for the rest of their lives. This was because Shi Feng was the true treasure here. Even if Shi Feng wanted all of the equipment, there would not be a single person who would refuse him. After all, the only reason they could make it to this point was all because of Shi Feng. That was why everyone was just standing by the side, obediently watching instead of rushing up to fight for the loot. All right. No need to rush. Shi Feng smiled. He quickly began to collect the items on the ground. Shi Feng was very satisfied with everyone's performance. They were unlike the players Shi Feng would occasionally party up with in his previous life. When the boss died, those players would rush up in unison to snatch the equipment. They immediately disappeared once they took all the equipment, leaving Shi Feng enraged and speechless. The reason Shi Feng did not set the party so that only the leader could pick drops was to test everyone's intentions. It was better to discover those treacherous people early on. Now that nobody had rushed up to snatch the items, Shi Feng could be more at ease with them. In a short moment, Shi Feng had collected all the loot on the ground. There were a total of 19 pieces of equipment and 5 silver coins. Such a harvest could rival the assets of a large guild in its entirety. Arranging his bag, Shi Feng's lips curled up into a smile. He found a forging design. Garrison armor forging design. Able to create a piece of level 3 bronze rank chest armor after learning the design. Materials required: 20 copper ores, 5 bronze ores, 5 magic essences. This piece of equipment was a good item. As long as a party's MT equipped it, diving into the normal mode of the Deathly Forest would become much easier. Not only did it have high defense and strength, it also increased maximum HP by 200 points. It was an extremely important piece of equipment for any MT. In Shi Feng's previous life, when this equipment was released, every guild madly fought over it. They also ignored all costs to enter the Deathly Forest in order to obtain this forging design. When Blackie saw Shi Feng's excited smile, his heart became even more anxious. It was needless to say for the other people, if a person's sight could kill, Shi Feng probably would have died over hundreds or thousands of times by now. The items are not bad. Here, you guys have a look. Shi Feng did not waste any more time. He immediately displayed the attributes of all the equipment. There were a total of 15 pieces of equipment. Amongst them there was only a single secret silver equipment, which was the Crimson Blade. There were also 5 pieces of mysterious iron equipment and 9 pieces of bronze equipment. The bronze equipment dropped by the bosses of Hell mode were all of the highest quality. The bronze equipment dropped by elites were far from comparable. Amongst all the equipment, after the Crimson Blade, the most valuable items were the pieces of mysterious iron equipment. Out of the 3 modes of the Deathly Forest, only Hell mode dropped mysterious iron equipment, whereas normal and difficult only dropped bronze equipment. Blackie's luck had always been good. Amongst the 5 pieces of mysterious iron equipment, there were 2 pieces of the dark color set meant for Cursemancers. The dark color set was definitely the set equipment for Cursemancers below level 5. There were a total of 5 pieces in the dark color set: head, chest, legs, shoes, arm guards. This time around the parts that dropped were the chest and shoes. These 2 items had placed a wide smile on Blackie's face. Brother Feng, I really love coming down to Hell. Let's come here once every day. That way I can complete the dark color set, and if anyone dares look down upon us at that time, I'll blast him to pieces. Blackie showed off the dark color set in his hands. After wearing the dark color set, Blackie felt himself becoming closer to an expert. His magic attack was increased to 66. A single level 3 dark arrow could take away more than half the HP of a level 1 shield warrior. If he could complete the dark color set, then a single dark arrow could one-shot a shield warrior. He put on the suit of ash-gray fur robes, coupled with glistening pitch-black boots. Everyone could tell they were pieces of a set with just a glance. The others drooled when they saw the black luster of the dark color set. Their hearts were filled with hatred and envy for Blackie. They had never imagined entering Hell would be such a great experience. They truly hoped they could enter Hell a few more times in the future. The remaining 3 pieces of mysterious iron equipment were the set pieces for Guardian Knight, Shield Warrior, and Elementalist. Amongst those present, only Kola was a Guardian Knight. Thus, Shi Feng gave the piece of equipment to Kola and stored the others. As for the remaining bronze equipment, Kola received a shield and Lonely Snow received a greatsword. Both pieces of level 2 equipment had the best attributes possible on them. Drowsy Sloth and Gluttonous Mouse also received a piece of bronze equipment each. Quite a few pieces of Shifeng's equipment were also replaced. Amongst the bronze equipment, there were 3 pieces that belonged to swordsmen. The 2 pieces of equipment that remained were stored away by Shifeng. When everyone had changed their equipment, it was as if the entire party had a makeover. Every piece of their equipment was incomparably brilliant. Just a glance was enough to tell that they didn't just have common equipment. The entire party had also risen to level 2. Blackie's experience was even at 98% of level 2, just a tad bit short of level 3. The other 4 items were a forging design, a potion recipe, a rare skill for Cursemancers, and a notebook. The rare skill for Cursemancers overjoyed Blackie. It was an AoE skill called Hell Flame. Hell Flame deals 150% flame damage to an 8 by 8 yard area. Duration of 5 seconds. Cooldown 36 seconds. It was a godly skill for grinding monsters during the early periods of the game. What is this thing for? Shifeng looked at the old notebook in his hand. He could not recall the hell mode of the Deathly Forest dropping such an item. Taking a look inside, Shifeng discovered words which he could not understand. However, Shifeng knew these words belonged to the ancient language of the elves. Within God's domain, any items which had a relationship with the elven language were definitely not common items. Just like the Ring of Gravity, there was a string of elvish words carved onto it. They had allowed the ring to possess unimaginable powers. It seems I have to make a trip to the library. Shifeng felt this notebook was not as simple as it seemed. In his previous life he entered the hell mode of the Deathly Forest tens of times. However, he had never seen such an item drop before. There was no such news from the other teams in the guild as well. The likelihood of the notebook dropping only on the first kill was high. If Shifeng wanted to make heads with the situation, he had to translate its contents at the library. Brother Feng, what are we going to do afterward? Grinding mobs? Blackie was eager to try out the new skill he learned. That's fine as well. We'll grind and do quests in Dark Moon Valley. The monsters there drop quite a lot of, or Shifeng said after some thought. With the forging design in hand, all that was left was to obtain the materials. However, Shifeng needed a lot of materials. Now that Blackie had Hell Flame, it should be a lot quicker to kill kobolds and gnomes. Furthermore, Shifeng knew of a few good locations where it would be suitable to use Hell Flame. Shifeng turned to look at the others, saying, "Will you guys follow us or do quests on your own?" Big Brother Feng, how could you leave me out of grinding mobs? I've already planned to follow Big Brother Feng in the future. Cola smiled like a fool as he gently caressed his new shield. Big Brother Feng, can we join as well? Drowsy Sloth and Gluttonous Mouse were both high schoolers. Currently they had their heads lowered in embarrassment. However, they did not wish to give up such a chance. Shifeng was a great expert. They would reap endless benefits if they could learn a thing or two by staying by his side. Shifeng said, smiling, "Of course you are all welcome to join." Suddenly, the two of them revealed excited expressions, both their hands clenched up in excitement. Since nobody is opposed to it, then we will go grind in Dark Moon Valley. After finishing his piece, Shifeng called out the system panel. He selected the dungeon's party teleportation, parting with the Deathly Forest. Chapter 32, Stunning Invitation. There was a sea of players in front of the Deathly Forest. Currently they were all gathered around the dungeon's entrance. Such a situation was due to the actions of the large guilds of Red Leaf Town. The elite teams of these large guilds had all arrived at the Deathly Forest. They were all prepared to challenge the dungeon. These teams were much stronger than the loosely made elite parties. Common equipment covered their entire bodies. There were even pieces of bronze equipment in the mix. That's Heaven's Crown's core MT immovable mountain. Never have I imagined that even he would come to this place. Someone will surely clear the Deathly Forest this time. Humph, Heaven's Crown is just a third-rate guild. Look over there, even the sub-leader of Assassin's Alliance, Stabbing Heart, is here. Also, the Guardian Knight named War Soul by his side is the top 5 knight of the Assassin's Alliance. He is even stronger than the immovable mountain. The players in the surrounding area started a discussion amongst themselves. They held optimistic views towards these large guilds at clearing the Deathly Forest. It was to be expected, as there were over 10 guilds currently present, both large and small. Amongst these guilds, the most well-known guild would be the second-rate guild, Assassin's Alliance. Following them would be the third-rate guild, Heaven's Crown. The others were just some unknown guilds, but they still would not be looked down on. This was because a workshop stood behind every guild. These workshops hired experts. Average players could not compare to them. Each large guild wanted to build its reputation in Red Leaf Town. Conquering the first dungeon in Red Leaf Town was the perfect way to do so. Hence, all of the large guilds made ample preparations for the dungeon. They spent large sums of their assets to buy equipment and medicine. They also bought a lot of information on the Deathly Forest. So, they were extremely confident about conquering the dungeon. Boss waving, these guild teams have gorgeous equipment. They will definitely clear the Deathly Forest this time, Wordless Summer Knight commented with a pained expression. Waving slowly but surely crossed his arms in front of his chest. He nodded slightly, saying in a helpless tone, "The Deathly Forest is too difficult. We party wiped before we even met the boss. In the end, parties like ours only became scouts for the guilds. What's there to brag about being a guild's expert? Boss, it's not our skills that are lacking. The dungeon is just too horrifying. It has too high of an equipment quality requirement," the shield warrior, battle to the end, said in disdain. He held contempt for the guild experts deep in his heart, and he was sure only their equipment prevented them from clearing the dungeon. "That's right, boss. If our party had such equipment, we would have long since cleared the Deathly Forest," Wordless Summer Knight confidently said. Speaking of dungeons, Wordless Summer thought of Shurfeng's party. He giggled as he said, "It's not like we didn't have any gain. We've killed 2 night rabbits and even got a skill book for berserkers. Compared to that party led by Captain Noob, we're much stronger. They still haven't shown themselves. I guess they've already fled from embarrassment. It sure is a pity for Lonely Snow. If he followed the boss, then he would have been given this skill book. If he found out about it, he would regret not following us into the dungeon." That's right. Lonely Snow doesn't know how to appreciate the kindness given to him. Now he will definitely regret not following the boss, Battle to the End laughingly said. Lonely Snow's skills are still quite good. I don't know how that noob managed to gain the favor of that expert called Blackie. However, no matter how great that expert's techniques are, with dead weight pulling him back, they would still party wipe. He is probably too ashamed to show himself right now. If he had gone with us, we might have cleared the Deathly Forest by now. Waving slowly was silently pleased with Blackie's end. "Boss, the guilds are going to enter now," Wordless Summer said. However, just as the guilds were about to enter the Deathly Forest, the dungeon's teleportation gate suddenly changed color. It instantly turned from a silvery gray to a pitch-black color. There was also an indistinct skull that was roaring. The many members of the guilds couldn't help but retreat a few steps back. What is this situation? Such a question appeared within everyone's hearts. However, they quickly received their answer. 6 figures suddenly appeared in front of the dungeon's entrance. Each and every one of them was clothed in glorious garments. Just by standing there, the 6 of them caused others to feel a faint pressure, especially the cursemancer with the black-colored staff. The dark gray-colored equipment on the cursemancer was clearly a set. A single glance was enough to tell they were not common goods. The materials it was made of were much better than bronze equipment. Why are there so many people? Shurfeng took a look at his surroundings, discovering these people were the elite teams of large guilds. He was slightly confused as to why all these people were blocking the dungeon's entrance. Shurfeng's party members also started to panic. The pressure from being watched by so many people was no weaker than facing off against a boss monster. Boss waving, "Look, isn't that the noob?" Wordless Summer pointed towards Shurfeng. Waving slowly knitted his brows. Shurfeng was not the only person he spotted. There was also Lonely Snow. He curiously asked, "How could they be here? Didn't they run away long ago?" In my view, I think they did not even enter the forest of the dungeon. They knew they could not clear the dungeon, but they were also afraid of embarrassing themselves. So, they stayed in there until now. Battle to the End laughed, but now they just happened to get caught after leaving the dungeon. Just look at how ugly Lonely Snow's expression is. Ah. As expected of a noob, he doesn't even have the courage to enter the dungeon. Waving slowly but surely felt Wordless Summer Knight's words made sense. If not, how could Shurfeng's party have returned safely? Waving slowly and the other party members experienced the horrendousness of the Deathly Forest. After entering the forest of the dungeon, there were only 2 possible results. Either they cleared the dungeon or they party wiped. There was no possibility of a third option. Now that Shifeng's party had returned safely, there was only one possibility: they never entered the forest. It was impossible that they cleared the deathly forest. During the time Waving slowly and company started laughing at Shifeng's party, the players surrounding Shifeng had already laughed themselves into madness. Such a scene confused Waving slowly and party. Why were these people laughing at Shifeng's party? Were they actually famous? What Waving Slowly's party did not know was that Shifeng's party had already become famous throughout the entire deathly forest. Shifeng's party mainly consisted of level 1 noobs, yet they entered the hell mode of the dungeon. There was no action more foolish than this. It would be hard for others not to notice such an action. As they say, bad news has wings. Haha, that exotic player is back. I actually admired him for entering the hell mode of the deathly forest, but he was just a coward. I can't take it anymore, my stomach hurts too much from laughing. The players surrounding Shifeng's party understood their actions. They had foolishly entered the hell mode of the dungeon, so they could not enter deep into the dungeon. Instead, they stayed around the dungeon's entrance and looked for a time to leave the dungeon in secret. Unfortunately, even God would not help them. They coincidentally left just to be seen by the many guilds. Brother Feng, what's wrong with these people? Blackie looked at the laughing players laying on the ground. Scratching his head, he asked with an odd tone, did their brains go bad? Why are they holding their stomachs and laughing on the ground? Who knows? Maybe their brains had a cramp. It seems we shouldn't play God's domain too long, especially for the first time. Shifeng did not think their appearance had any relation to the actions of these people. We better leave. This is just giving me the creeps. The other members of the party nodded in agreement. The players in the deathly forest were truly strange. Big brother, please hold on for a moment. Just as Shifeng's party was about to leave the dungeon's entrance, a ringing voice entered everyone's ears. Taking a look at the voice's origin, a beautiful and pure maiden dressed in a pure white mage's robe was seen walking toward Shifeng's party. Shifeng recognized this person. She was Starmoon Kingdom's top 100 cleric, Xiao Yuer. Xiao Yuer walked to Shifeng with an embarrassed look, a blush appearing on her tender white cheeks. She whispered, "Nice to meet you. I am Xiao Yuer of Ouroboros. We met before entering the dungeon. Our party's leader wishes to have a chat with you about the Deathly Forest's dungeon. I wonder if you would be interested in sharing?" Chapter 33, Changing from Arrogance to Humility, 1. Xiao Yuer's appearance shocked everyone present. Every player present knew who Xiao Yuer was. After all, she was the goddess party mate. Coupled with Xiao Yuer's beauty and purity, she was firmly implanted in everyone's memories. However, why would such a pure maiden invite a noob? Furthermore, what was harder to imagine was the person who invited the noob was not Xiao Yuer, but the goddess, Gentle Snow. Who was Gentle Snow? She was the publicly acknowledged snow goddess in the virtual gaming world. There were countless Mr. Perfects who wanted to approach her. There was even a trust fund baby who had offered 10 million credits just to have a meal with Gentle Snow. However, that person did not even receive a word from her. Scram. That trust fund baby was naturally enraged. Thus, he sought to get revenge and turn Gentle Snow into his possession. Yet, a few days later, this trust fund baby was dumbfounded. His father, a self-made wealthy man, suddenly became a poor pauper. All of his father's properties had, within a night, become someone else's possession. When the trust fund baby's father found the cause, he nearly beat his son to death. From then onwards, everyone finally knew the dreadfulness of Gentle Snow. However, Gentle Snow's fans had further increased in number after this incident. Gentle Snow was like a true goddess from the legends, divine and inviolable. Such a goddess had actively invited such a noob. How could it not shock people? Currently, everyone was no longer in the mood for laughter. There was only envy and displeasure. What virtue and ability did a noob have to be invited to chat with the goddess? Damn, this noob must have some dogshit luck. Why him? I'm so handsome, yet the goddess won't even speak a word to me. I, Jade Windtree, am an expert in God's domain, but why won't the goddess come have a chat with me? Could it be that I am too handsome? Or does the goddess prefer a wilder type? The goddess must want to understand the situation inside the Hell Mode dungeon. That's why she looked for him. I never imagined even noobs would have such benefits. If I had known earlier, I would have also entered hell mode once. Everyone started their own discussions. They glared at Shi Feng, having thoughts of disdain and envy towards him. They could not help but want to kill him right that instant. Boss waving slowly, I didn't hear wrong, right? That noob actually received an invite from the goddess. I must have heard wrong. Wordless Summer Night pinched his thick cheeks, saying with a foolish expression. It should be right. However, the goddess must have something she wishes to ask. He was only lucky, that's all. The prideful waving slowly deemed Shi Feng being able to chat with the goddess was all just due to his luck. Battle to the End nodded his head to the side, agreeing to waving slowly but surely's opinion. Gentle Snow was an existence they had looked up to. They were people of completely different worlds. Not to mention having a chat with her, they had already felt incredibly lucky just by being in the deathly forest with Gentle Snow. Just when everyone thought Shi Feng would smugly agree to the invitation, Shi Feng had instead given a contradictory answer. Not interested. I'm in a rush for time. Shi Feng turned around and left immediately after responding. He did not care about Xiao Yuer in front of him at all, and he cared even less about Gentle Snow's invitation. Now that the forging design was in his hands, he only lacked ore. The quicker the garrison armor made its appearance, the greater Shi Feng's income would be. If he missed out on this great chance, he would lose a large sum of coins. Blackie had been extremely excited when he thought he would be able to get close to the goddess. Shi Feng's answer, however, nearly drove him to madness. There must be a mispositioned nerve inside Shi Feng's brain to reject the invitation. It was not just Blackie who was dumbfounded, even Xiao Yuer was shocked motionless. It was the first time she met a man who actually rejected Sister Snow's invitation. Many men begged for such an invitation, yet all of them remained empty-handed. Could this man be a fool? Let's go. What are you daydreaming about? He turned and asked his motionless party members when Shi Feng discovered nobody following him. Brother Feng, that's an invitation from the snow goddess. Won't you think about it some more? Blackie requested. His mind was bordering insanity right now. At the same time, his heart continually prayed for Shi Feng to agree quickly. Such a great chance would be impossible to come by in the future. I've already said I don't have the time, Shi Feng responded with a smile. Shi Feng became speechless when he looked at Blackie's prayerful eyes. No matter what, Blackie's reverence for the snow goddess would not change one little bit. Currently, Gentle Snow and Xiao Yuer walked over. Clad in a silvery white plate armor, Gentle Snow was undoubtedly the focus of the entire deathly forest. Everyone's eyes were glued to her perfectly curved body, their mouths drooling. Nobody had imagined Gentle Snow would personally make an appearance. Everyone's envy and hatred for Shi Feng grew even more. You can be at ease. I will not waste too much of your time. This piece of bronze equipment can be your compensation. Gentle Snow carefully watched Shi Feng. She discovered Shi Feng was indeed different from other people. Although Shi Feng had a typical appearance, his body gave off a calm and steady feeling. There was also a faint murderous aura radiating from his body. Such temperament could only be honed after experiencing countless life-or-death battles. Snow. Xiao Yuer was shocked. She never thought Gentle Snow would think so highly of Shi Feng. Her beautiful eyes unwillingly turned towards Shi Feng. Her brows slightly creased and she said in a contemptible tone, I don't think this fellow is worth a piece of bronze equipment, a piece of gray equipment at best. They had already been respectful by inviting Shi Feng over for a chat. However, not only did Shi Feng not appreciate their kindness, he even rejected them immediately. If someone else received such an invite, they would have long since come running over to fawn over them. It was the first time Xiao Yuer met such an unattractive man who took such an action. She firmly believed Shi Feng had some scheme in his mind and there was nothing good about him. No need for the bronze equipment. I have those things myself. Shi Feng waved his hand, saying in an uncaring tone. He never tried to flatter the witch to begin with, but he never imagined she would speak of him in such a way. However, he was not a poor ghost. He did not need any charity. Xiao Yuer's beautiful eyes measured up Shi Feng. She couldn't help but let loose a faint laughter, playfully saying, Such an unyielding spirit. You clearly want it, yet you're refusing to admit it. Snow, this fellow is really insincere. Yueru. Gentle Snow impatiently sent Xiao Yuer a glance, hinting her not to overdo it. To begin with, they were the ones who took the initiative to send the invite. It would not be proper to look down on others now. Xiao Yuer pouted. She shot a glance toward Shi Feng, puffing out her prideful twin peaks as she helplessly turned her head away. She did not think a poor fellow like Shi Feng would have anything they wanted. Sorry, please receive this piece of equipment as an apology. Gentle Snow took out a level 0 bronze belt meant for a swordsman and traded it to Shi Feng. She wanted to put an end to this matter. Shi Feng did not reject the offer after seeing Gentle Snow's sincerity. If he rejected it, it would only show how petty of a man he was. At the same time, he would cause Gentle Snow to think he did not wish to reconcile. He couldn't just keep on refusing the kindness of others. Besides, he was indeed missing a bronze belt. Hee, and here I thought you had some great ability. In the end you still need it, Zhao Yueru said in disdain. She inwardly felt unfortunate to lose a piece of bronze equipment. They obtained this piece of equipment after killing a rare elite with much difficulty. It was an absolute waste now that their efforts were benefiting Shi Feng. Shi Feng slightly wrinkled his brows. Not even a man would be able to stand being mocked and ridiculed in such a way, not to mention a reincarnated person like Shi Feng. Since Miss Snow gave me a piece of bronze equipment, it is only proper for me to reciprocate in kind. Let this item be the return gift. Chapter 34. Changing from Arrogance to Humility, 2. Gentle Snow's eyes flashed when Shi Feng also wanted to gift her something. She felt astonished and thought Shi Feng was an interesting person. Shi Feng conducted himself properly, and he was not as hard to get along with as she had imagined. You? Gifting Snow a present? Do you think Snow would even want it? Zhao Yueru could not help but turn her head around. Her fresh red lips curled into a seductive smile, and her eyes held a sneer within them. She was silently laughing at Shi Feng's overestimation of himself. What kind of item has Gentle Snow not seen before? Even luxury cars worth over 10 million could not catch her attention, not to mention an item within a game. Currently, Shi Feng took out a piece of paper from his bag. This drawing was one of the drops from the boss. Shi Feng nonchalantly passed the item over to Gentle Snow. When Zhao Yueru saw Shi Feng take out a piece of scrap paper and give it as a present to Gentle Snow, she could not help but coldly say, "Are you trying to make a fool of us?" "No," Shi Feng said in a serious tone. "Snow gave you a piece of bronze equipment, yet what about you? You took out a piece of scrap paper to trick her. Do you think a piece of scrap paper could compare to a piece of bronze equipment? If you're not playing us for fools, then what are you trying to do?" Hearing Shi Feng's answer, Zhao Yueru was further enraged. Behind Shi Feng, Blackie and the others were each covered in a cold sweat. Even if you did not wish to chat with the goddess, you still should not make a fool of her. Wasn't this just courting death? They clearly obtained a good amount of equipment inside the dungeon, and just simply giving one of those pieces would easily solve the problem. If Shi Feng's actions angered the goddess, even if the goddess herself did not take action, the players surrounding them would surely kill them off for her. Seeing a mishap about to occur, Blackie thought of giving away the bronze staff he held. However, Gentle Snow gladly received the scrap paper Shi Feng gave her. Suddenly, Blackie and everyone else's mouths formed a 0H shape. The goddess accepted it? What kind of situation was this? "Thank you for your present, I like it very much. Now, can we go somewhere with fewer people to have our chat?" Gentle Snow smiled in appreciation. Shi Feng also smiled and nodded in agreement. Looking at Gentle Snow's faint smile was like watching a dazzling sun that warmed a person's heart. It would be hard to forget such a smile even after a lifetime. "Snow, you're going to forgive his rude actions just like that?" Zhao Yueru asked in a puzzled tone. "It's all right, Yueru. I like this item very much." Gentle Snow turned around after commenting, letting Shi Feng lead the way. Zhao Yueru was stunned. She just could not understand what kind of drug Shi Feng had given Gentle Snow. Was a piece of scrap paper enough? Just what was this piece of scrap paper? "Snow, just what did that fellow give you?" Zhao Yueru whispered. Just by seeing the fire poker on Shi Feng's waist, she could tell Shi Feng would not be able to give anything valuable. However, Gentle Snow still happily received it. Such a result puzzled Zhao Yueru significantly. A potion recipe for the basic strength potion. When consumed, it will increase a player's strength by 6 points for half an hour, Gentle Snow calmly replied. "What?" Zhao Yueru leaped up in shock. How could he have such a precious recipe? Potion making was very hard to learn. The recipes needed were famed for being rare drops. Even the current Ouroboros only had a few normal recipes, not to mention rare recipes. A recipe that was capable of increasing the strength of a player by 6 points was unheard of until now. If the current level 2 players could have an extra 6 points in strength, that would equate to an additional 12 attack power. Such a potion would have a significant effect when they dove into a dungeon. Regarding guilds who frequently conquered dungeons, the value of this recipe far surpassed that of tens of pieces of bronze equipment. As long as the basic strength potion were for sale, the supply would never be able to meet the demand. Yet Shi Feng gifted such a recipe away. Did Shi Feng not know the value of this recipe? However, Zhao Yueru shook her head, denying this assumption. Before, she had seen the confident expression on Shi Feng's face. He knew the immense value it had towards their guild. Currently, Zhao Yueru turned her head once more towards Shi Feng. A tinge of red appeared on her cheeks when she thought back to what she said before. She felt humiliated. She actually called a rare recipe a scrap paper. When she thought of Shi Feng's smile, he was definitely laughing at her lack of knowledge. He was such a hateful bastard. Now you finally know. I've already said he wasn't simple. Gentle Snow smiled at Zhao Yueru. Even after Gentle Snow and Shi Feng left the scene, the surrounding players had yet to recover themselves. What kind of situation was this? A noob actually received the attention of the goddess. Was this person really a noob? Boss waving slowly, that noob left with the goddess. Wordless Summer Night was very upset. After watching the goddess being very courteous with Shi Feng, even an idiot could tell Shi Feng was not that simple. Don't mind it. I've heard from others that the noob entered the hell mode of the deathly forest. The snow goddess must have intentionally invited him to learn about the difficulty of hell mode. Waving slowly did not believe that he would misjudge a person. Shi Feng was definitely a noob. He must have just been incredibly fortunate. Before he managed to gain the favor of an expert. Now he also somehow managed to obtain the favor of the goddess. In a rock pit over 200 yards south of the deathly forest, Gentle Snow and Shi Feng sat facing each other. Surrounding them was a beautiful scenery and gurgling streams. As for the others, they stood to the sides. None of them tried to eavesdrop on the conversation between Shi Feng and Gentle Snow. They comfortably sat down and started chatting amongst themselves. I wonder what business Miss Snow has for me. The Deathly Forest. Gentle Snow openly said, I want the strategy for the Deathly Forest. State your price. Hehe, I'm afraid Miss Snow is overthinking things. How could I have the strategy to the Deathly Forest? I've only entered the dungeon once. Shi Feng would not admit to possessing the strategy. It would bring about the suspicion of others. After all, God's Domain was a game constructed by the main God system. Even beta testers would not know a detailed strategy for the dungeon. It was still possible to trick amateurs such as Blackie, but it was impossible to trick Gentle Snow. Troubles would arise if Shi Feng were to generously share his strategy. Gentle Snow smiled sweetly. Her eyes swept once across Shi Feng's party members before calmly saying, If I'm not mistaken, the equipment your party members are wearing all came from the hell mode of the Deathly Forest. Although your party has 1 or 2 players with proper techniques, everyone knows you had invited 3 level 1 noobs as temporary members. Such a party was able to enter hell mode, and even came out with quite a lot of equipment. Do you think I would believe you if you said you did not have any information? Let's not twist our words around. I know you're a beta tester and not just any beta tester. You must have done detailed research on the Deathly Forest. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to clear the dungeon at all. This basic strength potion recipe is the best evidence as to why I would say you've cleared it. You can rest assured, however, that I will not reveal your secret. Gentle Snow fixated her gaze on Shi Feng as if she saw through Shi Feng's entire being. Alright, what you say is correct. Shi Feng shrugged his shoulders, silently letting loose a breath. He never thought Gentle Snow would fill up the questionable gaps. It would not be any better for Shi Feng if Gentle Snow thought in such a way. State your price then. Gentle Snow was all smiles with Shi Feng. It was as though she was saying, Did you think I could not control a person like you? This lady knows everything. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.